You're here, at the end of your day, or somewhere in the quiet pause between things. Soft sheets beneath you, shadows stretching along the wall, maybe a distant hum in the darkness. The world outside slows, sinks into hush. Your mind wanders, drifts. Perhaps you're folding laundry, or brushing your teeth, or just staring up into the gentle dark, hoping sleep will find you soon. Tonight, you are traveling back, far back, before kings, before villages, before written stories or carved names. The world is young, and all things are in motion. This is a place before borders or roads, when the land itself was wide, wild, and unclaimed, a world restless, breathing, alive with old winds and the scent of unknown rain. If you feel tired, that's perfectly fine. You don't have to stay awake to the end. History waits. Sleep is welcome here, slipping in and out, like a traveler beside a campfire, just listening to the low song of the past. What does it feel like to stand beneath ancient stars, knowing that everything ahead is unmapped and every path you choose might become the story of all who come after? And don't worry, there's no test at the end of this. The mammoths are nowhere near your bedsheets, and you're unlikely to wake up with sand in your socks. If quiet history like this helps you rest or wander, consider subscribing. It lets this small corner of calm keep growing. And if you're still awake, share your time and place below. I'd love to know who's listening tonight. Now close your eyes and walk into the starlit grasslands, where the first migrations begin. You stand at the edge of an ancient evening. The sky is wider than anything you've ever known, washed with the violet and gold of a dying sun. The air is cool and sweet on your skin. Tall grasses shiver all around you, each blade brushing your ankle, each whisper adding to the symphony of insects that rises as dusk falls. You breathe in deeply. The scent is part earth, part rain, part the slow exhale of growing things. This is Africa, more than 100,000 years ago. You are not alone. You belong to a small, close band, a gathering of families and faces, all shapes and ages, eyes bright in the firelight. These are your people, but also your world. There are children here, older ones teaching the young to twist reeds, to find tubers with their toes, to walk in silence when the wind changes. There are elders too, their faces shadowed, their voices soft as they remember which roots are good and which ones make you ill. You sit by the glow of a small fire. Its light is precious, kept alive with skill and patience, guarded from wind and sudden rain. The fire is warmth, is safety, is memory. You watch the flames curl and drift upward, taking stories and breath to the stars. At night, you sleep close to the others, tangled in furs or woven grasses. You dream of running, of sun and cloud, of laughter, and sometimes of teeth in the dark. The night sounds, and never lie it. Jackals calling in the distance, something heavy moving through the brush, an owl gliding past your ear, so close you feel the wind of its passing. But you are safe enough. For now, you have learned what to listen for. When you wake, the air is blue with early morning. Your breath is visible, small clouds that dissolve as the sun begins to rise. You gather what you need, small satchels of dried roots, the hard core of a baobab fruit, a sliver of antelope hide to chew as you walk. Your feet are tough as old leather. You feel the earth through them, every pebble and cool patch of dirt. The band moves as one, but never in a straight line. You follow the signs, broken grass where a herd passed last night, the wing beat of birds rising suddenly from a hidden pool, the faint tang of wild onions in the soil. Someone jokes quietly, and laughter ripples through the group, light as breath. The land around you is alive with movement. Herds of gazelle flow across the plain, bodies lean and quick, muscles rippling beneath thin skin. Sometimes a pride of lions dozes in the sun, their tails flicking at flies, their amber eyes half closed but always watching. The air hums with insects, flashes with birds, cranes, weavers, the sharp cry of a hornbill from somewhere high above. You have no map, no written memory. Your stories are carried in your mouth, in your hands, in the way your body moves through the world. There are places you remember, a rocky outcrop where the rains pool, a line of fig trees where the fruit falls in heavy sweet showers each autumn. You mark time by the flowering of certain plants, by the return of animals, by the slow swell of the river after storms. But things are changing. The seasons are less certain than they once were. Rains come late, or not at all. Herds move farther, driven by thirst and the promise of greener grass beyond the horizon. Sometimes you go hungry, sometimes you must travel farther than you ever have before, and the older ones look out into the long grass and say, softly, that the world is shifting. Still, there is beauty in this life. The stars overhead are old friends, patterns you know by heart, the Southern Cross, the hunter's bow. You lie on your back at night and trace stories in the dark with your finger, telling the young ones how the moon came to be, why the jackal steals, how you will find your way if you are ever lost. The band moves in rhythm with the land. When water grows scarce, you dig for it, hands and sticks and stones working together to coax a trickle from the hard earth. When the wild dogs chase antelope through the grass, you watch their path, hoping they will leave scraps behind. Sometimes you gather honey, braving stings for the golden sweetness hidden in old trees. The world is generous, but never for free. There are times you mourn too. You bury your dead with small offerings, bits of shell, a favourite tool, a few seeds pressed into the hand. The earth is both giver and taker. You remember those you lose in the way you speak their names, in the quiet moments before dawn when grief is sharpest. But always, there is the need to move, to follow, to survive. One morning, you wake to a sky strange and new, a flock of birds passing overhead, not seen in many seasons. Their wings catch the light flashing white and silver. The elders rise and study the tracks, sniff the air, listen to the sound of distant thunder. There is talk of rain, of rivers swelling far off, of green places returning where once there was only dust. The decision is made quietly, as such things often are. You will go. You will follow where the birds lead, into the unknown. The packing is simple. There are no possessions you cannot carry. A handful of flint blades, the precious fire sticks, a woven pouch of seeds. The youngest walk between the older ones, hands gripped tight. The strong carry what they can, but all know there will be times when the load is shared, when burdens shift from back to back as the hours wear on. You leave behind a circle of stones, a smudge of ash signs for those who might come after, proof that you were here once. As you walk, the sun climbs. The light is sharp, almost painful. Your shadow stretches long across the grass. Sweat runs in thin lines along your spine. Dust clings to your ankles. The day is measured in small things. A sudden patch of shade beneath a thorn tree. The cool shock of stepping into a stream. The brittle crackle of dry seed pods underfoot. When you rest, you chew bitter roots. Drink water from cupped hands. Your legs ache, but you keep moving. The band is quiet now. Each person lost in thought, in memory, in the slow, steady rhythm of one foot after the other. Sometimes you see other bands in the distance, smoke rising faint and blue against the sky. You watch them with curiosity, with caution. The world is wide, but not empty. There are meetings, short, careful, words exchanged in gestures and glances, gifts given, news passed. Sometimes you share a fire. Sometimes it is best to slip away before you are seen. As evening falls, the land changes. The light softens, grows gold, then purple. The air cools. Birds gather in the reeds by hidden water, their calls echoing across the open space. You make camp, light the fire. There are stories, always stories. The one about the trickster who fooled the lion. The one about the river that runs underground, waiting to return when the world needs it most. You listen. You laugh. Sometimes. You wonder what lies beyond the next hill. Night returns. The moon is a thin, curved blade in the sky. You lie awake, listening to the breath of those around you, the slow heartbeat of the world. You close your eyes, you drift, and in the morning, you rise again, moving forward, always beneath the same old stars. The first migrations are not a single event, not a journey with a beginning or end. They are life itself, an endless unfolding. You do not know where you are going. You only know you cannot stay. You feel it in your bones, in the hush before dawn, in the way the land calls to you, soft, insistent, promising something just beyond the next horizon. You take another step. The world, immense and waiting, opens before you. You walk because it is what you do, and what you have always done. Each morning, you rise with the sun, the hush of dew, still on the grass, and you feel in your limbs the pulse that drove your ancestors forward. You walk because the land tells you to, because the animals are moving, and the wind carries the promise of something new. The sky overhead is both roof and roadmap, a dome of pale blue or stormy silver, sometimes filled with birds, sometimes empty except for the drifting shapes of cloud and memory. Beyond the familiar grasslands, the world grows stranger. You look northward, and the colors shift. The green deepens, the soil grows darker, the trees thicken. There are rivers, cold and clear, slicing through the land, ribbons of water leading you away from the heat and dust. You are cautious, but curious. The old ones tell you that new places mean new dangers, but also new foods, new stories, new ways to live. You do not travel alone. Your band moves together, a drifting constellation of faces and laughter, of calloused hands and careful eyes. Sometimes you are joined by others, travelers returning from distant places, their speech tinged with unfamiliar sounds. They bring news of things you have never seen, animals with horns like branches, stones that glitter when struck, storms that roar and leave the land forever changed. You listen, hungry for the world. The first forays beyond the known horizon are uncertain, woven through with awe and a soft thread of fear. You know the stars, but here, the trees sometimes close above you, blotting out the familiar shapes. The wind smells different, of pine and wild onion, of things growing in the shadow. Your feet remember the flat grass, but here they learn to navigate root and rock, mud and fallen leaves that sigh under each step. You are not always welcome. The animals here are wary, their paths twisting and tangled. The water tastes different. Sometimes the land is silent, thick with waiting. You sense eyes on you in the dark, a leopard melting away behind a tree, sudden startled flight of birds as you approach a thicket. But you move forward, because something in you is drawn to the edge, to the place where the world drops away, and all that's left is what comes next. You feel time changing as you walk. Days lengthen, then shorten again. The sun sets in different places, and you learn to mark the passing of seasons in new ways. By the fall of certain leaves, by the arrival of cranes on a northern marsh, by the way your shadow shifts as you move through morning and afternoon. There are rivers to cross. You learn to read their moods, wide and slow in the valleys, frothing and swift, where they squeeze between stones. Sometimes you wade, the cold numbing your shins, your heart pounding as the current tugs at your legs. Sometimes you build rafts of reeds and drift us downstream, trusting the water to carry you forward, eyes watching for the flicker of fins or the gleam of crocodile eyes. Sometimes you stand on the bank and simply watch, knowing some crossings must wait for another day. Beyond the rivers, there are new lands to discover. Forests deep and old, where trees stand like silent watchers, their roots tangled in secrets. Here, the light comes down in green shards, dappling your skin. The air is thick, humming with insects and possibility. You walk quietly, listening for the crack of branches, the chirr of cicadas, the soft patter of rain on leaf. Your days are measured in movement. A few miles here, a day's journey there. Some days you rest, gathering berries or trapping small animals, weaving baskets from grass, mending the tools that have carried you this far. Other days you move and move, driven by hunger or the whisper of distant thunder. There is always another bend, another rise, another stand of trees to explore. Nights come early here, under the heavy boughs. The fires burn smaller, and the stories are told in whispers. You listen to the older ones describe places beyond imagining. Ice on the river, so thick you can walk across it. Trees taller than a spear's throw. Fish that flash silver in the dark. Their voices comfort you, even as they fill you with longing. Sometimes you feel the ache of homesickness. You remember the endless grass, the sweep of open sky, the way the land sang beneath your feet. But there is a different beauty here, in the hush and green, in the way the world folds around you. You learn to find shelter beneath a fallen trunk, to read the prints of wild pigs in the mud, to tell the difference between a berry that feeds and a berry that poisons. The land tests you, but it also teaches. You are not alone in your wandering. The band shrinks and swells. Some stay behind, drawn to a clearing rich with fruit, while others press forward, chasing the call of what lies beyond. You make friends along the way, other travelers, speaking languages you barely understand, their faces painted with ochre or daubed with ash. Sometimes you share a fire, trade a story or a tool. Sometimes you pass in silence, nodding only, both of you content to let the night hide your intentions. There are dangers too. Rivers in flood, swollen with rain, sweep away the unwary. Fallen trees block the path. The bones of lost travelers mark the places where the land claimed what it was owed. But for every risk, there is reward. You find new fruits, tart and wild, juice running down your chin. You find a stone that splits cleanly, perfect for shaping into a new blade. You learn the calls of birds that mean water is near, or the sharp bark of a monkey warning of leopards overhead. As you move farther from what you once knew, your dreams grow stranger. Sometimes you dream of the grasslands behind you, the smell of smoke and the faces of those you left behind. Sometimes you dream of things you have not yet seen, a mountain rising sharp against the sky, a river so wide it seems to split the world. In these dreams, you are always moving, always searching. There are days when the world feels endless. The land unspools beneath your feet, 1 mile after another, forests giving way to plains, then back to forest again. The horizon is a promise and a challenge, always just beyond your reach. Some days you wonder if you will ever find what you are looking for, or if you even know what it is. And yet, you keep going. You are driven by more than hunger or fear. You are pulled by the old curiosity, the urge to see what lies beyond the next rise, the desire to taste something new, to feel a different wind on your face. You move because the world is wide, and because deep down, you know you are meant to wander. Sometimes, in the hush before dawn, you think about those who will follow. You do not know their names, but you feel them in the bones of your feet, in the stories you carry. You wonder if they too will walk into the unknown, guided by stars and hope, making their own maps with every step. You pass through valleys where the air smells of rain and growing things, where the soil is black and rich, marked by the prints of buffalo and deer. You climb hills that leave your legs burning, your breath ragged, but the view from the top is worth every ache. The world rolls away in folds of green and gold, rivers shining in the distance, clouds piling like mountains on the horizon. Sometimes you find signs that others have been here before you. A pile of cracked nuts, a smudge of ash, a footprint pressed into the mud. You pause, touch the mark, and wonder who they were, where they went, what dreams they carried. In these moments, you feel the vast web of human movement, stretching back and forward, each traveller a thread in the tapestry.
There are moments of peace. You sit by a river, feet dangling in cool water, the sun warm on your back. You watch a heronfish in the shallows, its long neck arched, perfectly still. The world is slow, patient. For a moment, you forget the hunger, the uncertainty, the miles ahead. There is only this water, sunlight, the quiet company of your band.
But always, the world calls you onward. The seasons turn, the rivers rise and fall, the land reshapes itself with every storm. You move not just to survive, but to live, to learn, to find your place in a world too large for standing still. The path ahead is always open, always waiting. One day, you crest a hill and see, far below, a valley filled with mist. The trees are taller here, the air sharper, colder. You shiver, but curiosity propels you downward. In the mist, the shapes of animals move, shaggy, unfamiliar, their breath pluming in the dawn. You watch, fascinated, as they graze on the edge of the woods. Something in you stirs, a sense of kinship, of possibility. You walk softly, careful not to startle them. Your companions move with you, silent as shadows. Together you watch the new world unfold. The mist lifts, revealing a river twisting through the valley, its banks bright with flowers. Birds call to each other in the trees. The future feels close, tangible, shimmering on the surface of the water. You know you will not stay here forever. The urge to move is too strong, the world too vast. But for now, you rest. You eat, you drink, you laugh with your companions, sharing what you have found. You make plans for tomorrow, for the next bend in the river, the next rise to climb. At night you sit by the fire, listening to the wind in the trees. The flames dance, casting strange shadows on your faces. Someone begins to sing, a wordless song, old as the stones beneath your feet. The others join in, their voices rising and falling in the darkness, weaving together the memories of places left behind and the dreams of places yet to be found. You close your eyes. The song wraps around you, gentle and sure. In your mind, the world stretches out in every direction, endless, inviting, waiting for your footsteps. You do not know where you will go next, but you trust the land, the stars, the old wisdom in your blood. You sleep, and the world moves with you. You wake to a hush that is older than memory, older than story. The sky is pale and cloudless, the sun still below the curve of the earth. In the chill of dawn, your body aches from yesterday's walking. But the ache feels right, expected, part of you, as natural as your own breath. You reach for a handful of dried fruit, chew slowly, and listen to the stirrings of your band as they emerge from sleep, blinking in the half-light. Today you walk toward a place that is only a word, a story told by those who went before. Sahara. The name does not yet mean desert, not only though you will come to know its sands and heat. For now the world is changing beneath your feet. The land you cross is a wide green scattered with shallow lakes and winding rivers, with tall grasses waving and herds wandering far and near. This is the Sahara of memory, the Sahara before sand. It is a land that remembers rain. You can feel the old wetness beneath the soles of your feet, the way the soil still yields when pressed. How reeds stand tall along the marshes, and dragonflies flicker in the morning sun. Here water shapes the world. You follow its traces, faint grooves in the earth, the sudden song of frogs hidden among the lilies, the half-dried footprints of buffalo pressed deep and round. Your people know how to listen to the land. You kneel, fingers sifting through damp clay, reading the story it tells, of flood and drought, of seeds drifting on the wind, of fires that swept through last season, leaving black scars and the promise of new growth. There is a patience to this movement, a willingness to wait for the world to reveal its secrets. But patience does not last forever. The sky is different, somehow emptier, wider, the sun a little more fierce each day. The old pools are shrinking, the green receding, birds lifting great clouds at dawn, and fly south, wings flashing white and grey, a reminder that all things move, all things must seek their own survival. You watch them go and feel a small sadness, a tugging inside, as if some part of you longs to follow. The journey across the ancient Sahara is a slow unraveling, a migration written in water and dust. You travel in small groups, splitting and coming together, following the changing fortunes of the land. Sometimes you find a place so lush, so thick with green and animal life, that you stay for days, resting, gathering, letting the children play in the mud, and the elders tell stories of storms and gods, and rivers that never run dry. But always, the world pushes you onward. One morning, you wake to find the grass has yellowed overnight, the air heavy with heat, the frogs silent. The lakes are shallow, ringed with white crust where the water has pulled away. You kneel and taste the ground, tongue searching for the tang of salt, the memory of rain. The old ones nod, and you know what comes next. You gather what you can carry: baskets of wild grains, bitter roots, dug from the shadow of rocks, gourds heavy with water, carefully hoarded. You wrap the youngest in cloth, sling them to your back. The strong help the weak, as they always have. You look to the horizon, where the land shimmers in the morning light, an invitation or a warning. The days are long, slow, filled with the steady rhythm of walking. The grass is thin, the pools vanish. Each afternoon, the sun hangs above you like a silent watcher, its heat relentless. Your skin grows dark, toughened by wind and sun. Sweat stings your eyes, drips from your chin, dries to salt on your lips. Still, there is beauty here. You notice it in small things: the shadow of a bird gliding across the sand, the sudden flare of wildflowers blooming in a hidden hollow, the way the sky turns violet and orange at dusk, promising coolness and rest. Sometimes you find old stones, arranged in circles or lines, the work of hands long gone. You touch them, wondering who passed this way before you, what they sought, whether they found it. Night in the shifting Sahara is a relief. The world cools, the wind rises, and the stars come out. Thousands of them, sharp and bright, scattered across the sky like seeds. You lie on your back, letting the earth cradle you, and listen to the stories told in low voices, of ancestors who spoke to crocodiles, of spirits who ride the storm, of a time when the land was all water and everyone had to swim. The air smells of dust and memory. You close your eyes and drift, feeling the old dreams circle around you. Sometimes you wake in the darkness, disoriented, unsure if you are here or somewhere far away, if you are yourself or one of those who walked this land 1,000 years before. Each day brings a little less water, a little more distance between you and what you left behind. The world narrows to the essentials: water, shelter, each other. You dig for moisture beneath dry stream beds. Watch for the telltale green of a tree that might mean a hidden spring. Your feet grow sore, blistered, then toughen again. You learn to rest in the shade of rocks, to move at night when the air is gentle and the moon throws a silver path before you. The children complain less as the days pass. They learn the rhythm of scarcity, the necessity of silence. The old ones walk slower, but they walk, leaning on carved sticks, their eyes bright and searching. You all know that to stop is to risk being left behind, not just by your band, but by the world itself, which is always changing, always moving on. You meet other groups along the way, some friendly, some wary, all marked by the same dust, the same hunger. Sometimes you share food, news, laughter. Sometimes you pass in silence, eyes lowered, each of you clutching your burdens a little tighter. The land is not cruel, but it is indifferent. It gives and it takes. You learn to accept both with the same quiet strength. There are moments of wonder. Even here, you find an ancient lake, blue as the sky, ringed with reeds and teeming with birds. You strip and plunge into the cool water, your body light and free, the ache in your bones forgotten for a while. The children shriek and chase each other, splashing and laughing, the sound echoing across the wide plain. You fill your gourds, your hearts. For a moment, you are simply alive, not journeying, not surviving, just. But such moments are rare. More often, you walk through places where the world is giving up its secrets, drying out, withdrawing into silence. You pass over bones bleached white by the sun, the remains of animals that did not make it, the evidence of seasons harsher than yours. You feel a kinship with them, a reminder that survival is a story written in footsteps, in choices, in the willingness to keep going. The sky grows wider, the clouds more distant. The grasses are gone now, replaced by low shrubs, then by nothing at all. The sand begins, fine and pale, shifting beneath your feet. The heat rises from the earth in shimmering waves. The world is all horizon, all possibility and danger. You know that others have crossed before you. The old ones tell stories of ancestors who walked from waterhole to waterhole, their paths guided by stars, by memory, by faith. You try to remember their words as you move into the emptiness, where to look for shade, how to dig for roots, which signs in the sky mean rain is coming, even if it is still days away. Each day is the same, and yet each is different. Sometimes you lose track of time. The sun climbs and falls, the moon waxes and wanes. You measure your days by the weight of your pack, the number of steps before your feet begin to bleed, the taste of the last drop of water in your gourd. At night the cold is sharp, almost shocking after the day's heat. You huddle together, sharing warmth, letting your breathing and heartbeat sink into something steady, ancient. Someone always keeps watch, the youngest, sometimes eager to prove their worth, or the oldest, awake with memories that refuse to rest. You dream of rain, you dream of green places, of the world you left behind. But you also dream of what lies ahead, a land where the grass grows tall, where rivers run full, where you will not have to walk so far for so little. And sometimes, as dawn creeps over the horizon, painting the sand gold and pink, you feel a kind of peace. You are part of something larger than yourself, a migration that began before you and will continue long after. Your footprints join 1,000 others, weaving a tapestry across the land, a map written in motion and hope. One day, you crest a rise and see, far below, a river, real, wide, sparkling in the morning light. The children run ahead, laughter breaking the hush. The old ones smile, remembering. You kneel at the water's edge, cup your hands, and drink deeply. The taste is wild and sweet, full of promise. You rest by the river for days, letting the world catch up to you. Fish dart in the shallows. Birds call from the reeds. You gather, you mend, you remember what it feels like to be safe, even if only for a while. But you know you cannot stay. The world is still changing. The sky still shifts. The land still waits to test you, to teach you, to draw you onward. When you leave, you do so with gratitude, with the memory of water cool on your skin, of laughter ringing out across the plain. You look back only once, then face forward again, toward the next horizon. The Sahara will become desert. Soon, the rains will fade, the grasses wither. Those who come after you will know only sand and heat and wind. But you remember, even if only in dreams, the time when the world was green, when the land was wide, and everything seemed possible. You walk on, carrying the memory of rain in your heart, knowing that somewhere the world is waiting for you to arrive. You wake with a start. The world around you, unfamiliar, the air carrying a sting of salt and dust. The sun rises in a sky scraped raw by wind. The land you see is harsher now, less forgiving. Gone are the tangled grasses and ancient pools. Instead, the ground is painted with red dust, scattered rocks, small thorny bushes clinging to life where water is memory. The horizon wavers, blurred by heat. Somewhere a jackal calls, thin and distant, as if marking the edge between old world and new. You and your band stand at the threshold of Arabia, where Africa's green dreams dissolve into sunburnt stone. To your west lies the continent you've left behind, a world of old rivers and vanished rain. Ahead, the unknown. You can almost taste the air, sharper, hotter, with a tang of minerals and silence. Everything is changed, except the need to keep moving. You learn the ways of arid land quickly, because you must. Each day begins with searching for water, for shelter, for a way through the red rock and wide empty spaces. The old ones teach you to watch the sky, to smell the wind. Sometimes, in the cool before dawn, you spot a distant shimmer that might be dew, or the dark stripe of a dry riverbed where water sleeps below the surface. You dig with hands and sticks, scraping at the earth until it yields a muddy drop, then another. When you find a spring, a true, bubbling, trickling spring, you almost weep and let the children laugh and splash until their bodies gleam. Nothing is wasted. Water is gathered in hollowed gourds, cupped in palm leaves, licked from rocks. You soak rags and press them to your lips, ration every sip. The memory of rain is with you, but you do not linger on it. Instead, you listen for the voice of stone, the way it creaks and sighs in the sun, warning you of heat, of danger, of time slipping away. Traveling across the Arabian Peninsula is a lesson in endurance. The days burn, the sun a white hammer overhead. At midday, you shelter in the shadows cast by rock outcrops, breathing in the faint coolness. Flies buzz, persistent and patient. Your skin stings with sweat and dust, but you keep moving. Your feet remember the old grasslands, but here they grow hard, toughened by gravel and thorn. You follow trails carved by animals, gazelle, ibex, wild ass paths that twist between low hills and flat, shimmering plains. Sometimes you stumble upon the bones of those who came before you, bleached and scattered, telling stories of journeys that ended too soon. You feel a quiet kinship with them, a whisper of warning, but also of courage. Each bone, each faded print is a reminder you are not the first, and you will not be the last. Nights bring relief, but also new dangers. The heat fades, replaced by a brittle cold. Stars ignite overhead, sharp and countless. The air is so clear that it seems the sky could split open and spill its secrets at your feet. You huddle close to your fire, feeding it carefully, twigs, dry grass, a scrap of bark hoarded through the day. The fire is your heart now, pulsing orange and red in the deep dark. Shadows flicker on your faces as you listen to the night sounds. A lizard scurrying, an owl calling, the distant roar of a sandstorm stalking the horizon. You are not alone in these lands. Here and there, you meet other wanderers, people shaped by the same hardships, faces drawn tight with sun and hunger. Sometimes you share a fire, trading stories, a handful of dried dates, a brittle laugh. Other times you pass without words, each group wary, each life too fragile to risk more than a nod. The world is a vast tapestry of paths, and in the desert, each one is precious. Food is a daily puzzle. You search for wild tubers, for the tracks of small game, for honey tucked inside the dry skeletons of ancient trees. Sometimes you follow a flock of birds, hoping they will lead you to water or to the fruiting bushes, where they feed. You eat slowly, chewing each bite, grateful for its bitterness or sweetness, whatever it brings. Hunger becomes a kind of teacher, its lessons etched deep in bone and memory. You invent new ways to survive. A pouch of water tied beneath your tunic to cool your chest. Sandals woven from tough grass, tied with strips of hide to spare your feet the worst of the burning stones. You learn to rest in the shadow, to move at dawn and dusk, to watch for the subtle shifting of sand that means a snake has passed or a scorpion has left its mark. Your eyes grow sharp, attuned to every color, every shadow. Sometimes the wind changes. You feel it as a prickle on your neck, a shift in the pattern of sound. Sand lifts and swirls in small devils, dancing across the plain. In the distance, a storm brews, clouds towering, rolling, charged with electricity. You gather your people, press close to rock or hollow, wrap your bodies in cloth and skin. When the storm breaks, it is a fury of sand and wind, stinging your face, filling your ears and mouth with grit. You endure, waiting for the world to settle again. After the storm, the land is changed. Dunes shifted, tracks erased, sometimes a new pool gleaming in a hollow. You thank the sky, Thank the gods or spirits you believe ride the wind. You drink, you wash, you tell stories of survival. Even in the desert, there is room for gratitude. The world here teaches patience. You move slower, each step measured, each choice weighed. The landscape is a kind of map, and you read it with all your senses. A pile of stones marking a forgotten grave. The sudden shrill song of a cricket announcing the coming dusk. The scent of wild thyme crushed underfoot. You begin to feel the desert as part of you, not an enemy, but a teacher, a constant companion. In the deepest heat of midday, you rest beneath a rocky overhang. The world shrinks to the circle of your shadow. You watch a line of ants working, never stopping, each carrying more than its weight. You think of your own journey, of what you carry, of what you leave behind. Sometimes the burden feels too much. You remember other travelers, other stories, and find a kind of strength in that long line stretching backward and forward through time. You make camp in the evening, always careful to keep the fire small, the noise low. Predators still haunt these lands. Hyenas, leopards, sometimes even the silent, heavy-footed lions that cross from Africa's old realms. Their eyes glow in the darkness, yellow and patient, waiting for weakness. You do not show it. You guard the children, sharpen your tools, listen for the subtle crunch of stone that means you are not alone. And yet, there is beauty here that surprises you. At dawn, the world is washed with colour, rose and gold, the light glinting off every grain of sand. Sometimes you wake to find small flowers blooming in the shelter of a stone, petals delicate as a sigh. The desert is not empty. It holds life fiercely, quietly, a lesson in resilience, written on every stone, every root. You carry memories with you. The laughter of a child running through a patch of green, the coolness of a spring found just as hope was fading, the rough hands of an elder steadying you as you crossed a ravine. In this land, memory is a kind of sustenance. It keeps you moving, gives you reason to endure. You wonder, sometimes, what lies ahead. Rumours travel with the wind of lands where rivers run year-round, where fruit hangs heavy on the trees, where the air is cool and sweet. You do not know if these places exist, but you hold them in your heart, a compass set to hope. You cross mountains of red stone, their faces cracked and worn by wind. At the summit, the world opens, an endless sea of sand and sky. You stand for a moment, letting the wind whip your hair, your cloak. Below, the land stretches in all directions, empty and full at once. You feel small, but also vast, part of something greater than yourself. You descend, carefully, your feet finding purchase on loose gravel, your hands skimming the stone. Sometimes you slip, a moment of panic before you right yourself, heart pounding. Each descent is a reminder. There is always risk, always the possibility of falling, but you keep going, step by step, because there is no other way. You mark your passage with small signs. A cairn of stones, a bit of cloth tied to a branch. You want those who follow to know you were here, you survived, you moved forward. In the desert, even the smallest mark endures. At night, you gaze at the stars, so many, so close, their light cold and sharp. You see shapes in the sky, stories written in constellations. The old ones tell you which stars will guide you home, which ones to follow into the unknown. You listen and you believe, because sometimes belief is all that stands between you and despair. The journey across Arabia is not a single path, but a weaving band splitting and rejoining, stories crisscrossing the Red Land. You hear tales of others, those who moved east toward distant mountains and the promise of rain, those who travelled south, chasing the shadow of clouds. Each journey is unique, but all a part of the same great migration. You do not know what tomorrow brings. Each day is a question, each night a small triumph. You measure your life in footsteps, in breaths, in the way your heart quickens at the sight of water, of shelter, of another band of travelers waving in the distance. You are a wanderer. The desert does not care for your comfort, but it makes you strong. You learn to carry the silence inside you, to find peace in the sound of your own footsteps on red stone. The world is harsh, but it is also beautiful, and you are part of both. In the morning, you rise again, gather your things, and move into the shimmering heat. The path ahead is uncertain, but you walk it anyway, always forward, always searching. You know that somewhere, beyond the dust and sun and silence, the land will change again. There will be water, and shade, and a place to rest. But for now, you walk beneath a sky too bright for dreaming, your shadow stretching long behind you. The hardest journeys begin like this, one foot, then another, into a world that is both challenge and promise, emptiness and hope. And still you go on. You wake to the cry of seabirds, the restless hush of wind off distant water. Salt sharpens the morning air, dry and electric on your tongue. When you blink the dust from your eyes, the horizon is a line of silver and blue, a promise, a border, a beckoning edge. The desert is behind you, for now, but its lessons remain. Thrift, patience, the art of listening to the world's small signs. You move toward the coast, where land surrenders itself to the ceaseless rhythm of tides. The air is cooler here, alive with new scents, brine, kelp, the sour sweetness of rotting shells, the crispness of early dawn mist. The sand under your feet is pale, flecked with shell and bone, shaped by waves that have come and gone since long before you. In this liminal place, the world feels both empty and full, strange, wild, alive with possibility. You follow the shoreline. At your side, the band is thinner than it once was, but stronger for it. Each person marked by the journey, faces lean and eyes sharp. Some carry scars, stories woven into flesh and muscle, reminders of hunger and distance, and the hard mercy of sun. The youngest among you have never known the old world, only this one, of shifting lands and the ever-present edge of the unknown. Along the coast you find plenty and want, both in measureless supply. At low tide, the world reveals its hidden pantry, pools glittering with crabs and snails, ribbons of kelp twisting in the shallows, slick stones heavy with mussels and limpets. You kneel in the cold surf, hands numb, prying shells from the rocks, grateful for the abundance that the land denies, but the sea offers up so generously. The air here rings with gulls and the laughter of children, chasing the waves, learning which creatures pinch and which can be eaten raw. Yet abundance is never simple. The sea gives, and it takes. You learn to read the tides as carefully as you once watched the stars. The difference between a full meal and an empty night is measured in the moon's slow waxing, the tug and pull of water that seems to breathe along with you. Some days a storm blows up without warning, sending waves crashing high, devouring your caches of food, stealing even the footprints you left in the sand. On those days you huddle in the lee of dunes, holding one another, counting the moments until the fury passes and the world settles back into its slow rocking rhythm. You walk the edge, always between sand and surf, between old fear and new hope. Sometimes you come upon the remains of others, fish bones and broken shells, hearthstones ringed with ash, a scattering of beads, carved from bone or soft stone. Each sign is a message from those who came before, a reminder that you are not alone, even when the wind howls and the sky closes down around you. You learn new ways to live. The land is not for sowing, but for gathering, and your hands grow clever. You weave baskets from reeds, tough and tight, perfect for collecting shellfish or carrying a catch of wriggling crabs. You fashion hooks from bone, lines from plant fiber, nets from twisted grass. At night, you mend what the day has torn, fingers nimble in the firelight, voices low and sleepy with the lull of the waves. Food is only part of survival. The coast teaches you about shelter, about change. Sometimes you sleep in shallow caves, cut by the patient work of tides. the walls crusted with salt and the floor soft with old seaweed. Other times you build low windbreaks from driftwood, crouching together for warmth as the sea breathes its slow, endless song. Each day the land is remade, a new channel cut here, a dune swallowed there. You adapt, you move, you make a home wherever the world allows. The rhythm of the tides becomes the rhythm of your life. You wake with the rising sun, watch the water retreat, hurry to gather what the night has left behind. In the afternoons, the tide returns, the world shrinking to a narrow strip of land between water and sky. You nap in the shade, tell stories, mend wounds. At dusk you watch the sun sink into the sea, fire painting the water in gold and crimson, a sight older than memory. There are dangers, even here. The sea hides teeth, jagged rocks, poisonous fish, swift tides that can catch the unwary and pull them out into the wide, indifferent blue. Sometimes a band member is lost, slipped beneath the waves, swallowed by the sea's hunger. You mourn quietly, standing together at the water's edge, listening to the surf as if it might return what it has taken. But the sea does not grieve, and so you learn to do so in your own way, by living, by walking forward, by remembering the names of the lost as you gather food and light the evening fire. The coast is not just a line, but a ribbon winding on, curling around headlands, looping into bays, climbing over rocky outcrops. You follow it faithfully, trusting its logic. When the land grows steep and the waves slam hard against black stone, you find new ways forward, sometimes scrambling over rocks slick with spray, sometimes waiting for the tide to fall, making a game of timing your dash before the water rises again. You discover the language of the sea, the shifting color that means fish are running close to shore, the way gulls circle, hungry and loud. When a school of sardines is trapped in a pool, the strange trembling silence that falls before a storm. The world is a puzzle, and you are learning how to read its pieces, fit them together, find meaning in every change. At night, you gather around a fire built high above the tide line. The flames crackle, casting long shadows across the sand. You eat together, sharing what you have, salt drying on your lips, the sea's bounty filling your bellies. Sometimes you sing low, wordless songs, half lullaby, half memory, voices mingling with the hush of surf and the call of night birds. The old ones tell stories of the world before, of land swallowed by water, of fish that leapt from river to sky, of journeys that led to new shores and new dreams. Some nights, the moon is bright, silvering the world, turning the sea to a sheet of glass. You walk to the water's edge, toes sinking into the cool sand, and watch the waves fold in, fold out, their rhythm hypnotic. You feel small and vast all at once. One body among many, one story in a world of endless stories, all written in sand and salt and the deep, patient movement of time. In the distance, you see fires, other bands, other wanderers, following the same path, guided by the same needs. Sometimes you meet, drawn together by chance or hunger, and for a day or two the world is bigger, brighter. You trade stories, food, sometimes tools or songs. If the meeting is good, you part with new friends, new knowledge. If not, you slip away quietly, returning to the rhythm of the surf and your own people's silence. Children grow up by the sea. They learn to swim before they can walk far, to spot the difference between a jellyfish and a drifting scrap of seaweed, to read the tides and weather in the same way they read faces. They are fearless and quick, running ahead, darting into pools, their laughter carrying far on the wind. Sometimes you envy them, their certainty, their joy. Sometimes you fear for them, knowing how easily the world can shift, how quickly abundance can become absence. Seasons change along the coast, though not in the way they did on the grasslands or in the old green Sahara. Here, the biggest changes are in the water, the arrival of certain fish, the migration of birds, the storm season's wild violence. The land is more or less the same, dunes and rocks and wind, but the sea is never the same 2 days in a row. Sometimes food is scarce. The storm has swept the shore clean. or the fish have vanished to deeper water. Hunger sharpens your senses. You walk farther, climb higher, try new foods, some bitter, some strange, some dangerous. You learn to cook in ways you never did before, roasting shellfish over hot stones, drying seaweed for lean times, boiling whatever will soften and give up its flavor to the pot. Innovation is survival. Sometimes you surprise yourself with what you can endure. You move not just because you must, but because it feels right. The coast calls to you, the horizon always curling forward, beckoning. Each new cove is a possibility, a hidden spring, a cluster of edible roots, a cave untouched by other hands. Even in hunger, even in uncertainty, there is excitement. What will you find beyond the next bend? What new world waits in the spray and the morning sun? There are days when the sea is calm and the sky a perfect, endless blue. On those days you feel a kind of peace, a sense that the world is wide enough to hold you, that the path ahead is open and gentle. You walk slowly, gathering as you go, savoring the warmth on your back, the salt on your skin. The children race ahead, scattering birds, inventing games. The old ones walk more slowly, but their eyes are bright, scanning for every sign of change. You dream differently here. Your dreams are of water, of swimming far out, of finding land where none should be, of flying above the waves, your shadow flickering over the blue. Sometimes you wake with the taste of salt in your mouth, your heart racing, your body tangled in sleep, as if you have just come ashore from some deep journey. And when you wake, the world is still there, still wild and bright and strange. You gather yourself, gather your people, and walk on, following the edge of the world. The coast leads you onward, always onward, past headlands and bays, past danger and delight, into a future written by the tides. No one tells you where to go or when to stop. The only compass is your hunger, your curiosity, your quiet, stubborn hope. Sometimes the journey feels endless. Sometimes it feels like home, but always you move forward, feet in the sand, eyes on the ever-shifting line between sea and sky. You walk, you listen, you remember. The taste of salt is in your mouth, the sound of waves in your ears, the memory of old migrations behind you, and the dream of new worlds ahead. And so you follow the wild coast, on and on, as the world turns and the sea breathes and history moves with you, gentle and unstoppable as the tide. You step from sand and salt into green shadow. The sea's endless breathing hush grows fainter behind you, replaced by the slow throb of insects and the drip of water falling leaf to leaf. The air is different here, thicker, warm, fragrant with damp earth and the rot and bloom of things you cannot see. Light arrives in pieces, sifted by the tangled canopy overhead, soft and green as moss. This is a land of river and forest, where the world closes around you and each step is both shelter and challenge. You are entering the old jungles of South Asia, where the land forgets to be simple and easy and begins to coil, to rise, to tangle itself in vines and trees and secrets. The wind does not sweep here, but drifts caught and slowed by leaves bigger than your hands, by branches knotted with moss and orchids, by the thick, slow architecture of life in shade. You do not walk alone. The band has changed again, some left behind, drawn to the abundance of the coast, others joining from riverside camps or small inland clearings. Your numbers swell and shrink, like the river itself, each traveller carrying a different story, a different hunger. You speak in a patchwork of words and gestures, but here in the hush and heat, silence is as useful as speech. Your feet find the river first, a wide brown snake, twisting between roots and stone, its surface broken by drifting leaves, by the silent wake of a crocodile. The river is a path, but not a gentle one. It offers fish, snails, the cool embrace of water, but also teeth, fever, currents that tug at your legs with invisible hands. You learn to approach with caution. You learn to listen to the warnings hidden in bird calls, in the sudden hush when the monkeys vanish from the treetops. You follow the river's bends, winding through a world that seems to double back on itself, never straight, always folding and curving, as if even the land is uncertain where it leads. Sometimes you walk in the mud, your feet sinking, squelching, tiny leeches finding their way to your skin. Sometimes you climb roots as thick as your body, gripping with hands and toes, the bark damp and slick, the smell of earth rich and close. The jungle presses close at every side, a living wall of green. There are palms and ferns, bamboo thickets and groves of strange, smooth trees, whose trunks gleam in the light. Flowers open in sudden bursts, red, yellow, violet, colors so bright they sting your eyes after so much green. In the evenings, fireflies drift like embers, flickering above the water, over the low shelters you build from leaves and branches. Food is everywhere and nowhere. There are nuts and roots, sweet fruits hanging in high branches, berries gleaming under thorny shrubs. But each gift is a risk. You taste cautiously, watch the animals, remember the warnings of those who fell sick or died after eating the wrong thing. The land here can be kind, but it is never careless. You learn to boil what can be boiled, to peel away bitter skins, to chew a leaf and wait, listening for the first hint of numbness on your tongue. Animals move through this world like ghosts. A flash of stripes, the heavy tread of something large moving in the brush, the sudden cry of a bird you cannot see. You learn to read the warning signs, the low hum of bees, the trail of ants winding up a tree, the way the forest grows silent when a leopard stalks nearby. Your nights are uneasy, every snap of twig or rustle of leaf stirring old fear. But you are not just afraid. The jungle is full of wonders. You come upon an orchid the color of flame, blooming on a branch high overhead. You find a pool clear and still, frogs clinging to lily pads, the air thick with dragonflies. You hear the laughter of gibbons in the morning, their voices wild and joyous, swinging from tree to tree, as if the world itself is a playground. Sometimes you move by water, fashioning small rafts from lashed-together bamboo and palm trunks. You float downstream, eyes wide, ears alert to the dangers that slide beneath the surface. The river carries you through narrow gorges, under arches of vine and tree, past banks where elephants come to drink at dusk, their tusks gleaming, their trunks curling in the muddy water. You watch in silence, holding your breath, feeling both awe and the smallness of your own body. The days are humid, your skin always damp. Sweat clings to your face, your back runs down your arms and legs. The sun, when it finds you, is fierce, but shade is everywhere. Sometimes, a sudden rain erupts from a cloudless sky, drenching you in seconds, turning the paths to rivers of mud. You huddle beneath broad leaves, laughing at your own helplessness, waiting for the storm to pass. You learn new ways to live. You weave shelters from palm fronds, tie knots that hold even when wet, make fire with wood so green it seems impossible, the smoke pungent and sharp. You learn to follow the signs of the forest, the way certain vines always point to water, the calls of birds that mean a storm is coming, the scent of blooming flowers that draw bees and, sometimes, honey. Every evening you gather by the fire, smaller here, always smoky, the wood burning slow and reluctant in the damp. You share what you have gathered, tubers roasted in ash, fish wrapped in leaves, a handful of sour berries, the rare sweetness of wild honey. Stories are whispered, voices soft so as not to wake the sleeping world around you. The old ones remember a time before the trees, a time of open sky and long grass. The young ones listen, their eyes wide as if trying to imagine a world without the slow drip of water, the press of leaves against skin. Some nights the jungle is so loud you cannot sleep. A cacophony of frogs, crickets, night birds, the occasional cough of a leopard somewhere close. Other nights, silence falls, thick and absolute, broken only by the thud of your own heartbeat. Sleep comes in fits, dreams twisted by fever or the damp. You learn to rest with one ear open, to wake easily, to find comfort in the closeness of your companions. You meet others, deep in the forest. Sometimes they are friendly, trading roots or stories, showing you which plants are safe, which paths to avoid. Sometimes they are wary, melting into the trees before you can speak. You watch them go, wondering at the lives hidden in the endless green, at how many feet have trodden these winding paths, how many fires have burned unseen beneath the canopy. You move slower now, the forest dictating your pace. There is no straight line, only the path of least resistance, around a fallen trunk, across a shallow stream, through a gap in the vines. Your hands are always busy, pushing aside branches, brushing away insects, reaching for the steadying grip of a friend. Each step is careful, considered, as if the forest itself demands respect for every inch. There are times when you lose your way. The world looks the same in all directions, green, layered, infinite. The sun is only a rumor, a faint glow somewhere above the leaves. You learn to look for the river, to listen for the sound of water, to trust the old tricks, moss on one side of a tree, the flow of ants, the arc of certain birds in flight. When you find your way again, there is relief, but also pride. You are learning the jungle's language, slow and patient. Sometimes sickness sweeps through your band, fevers that burn hot and sudden, rashes that itch and spread, coughs that linger in the damp air. You treat what you can with herbs and patience. Some heal, some do not. The forest is generous, but it does not promise mercy. You bury your dead beneath ferns and roots, mark the place with a circle of stones, a prayer whispered into the thick air. Grief is quieter here, softened by the press of growing things, by the knowledge that all life returns to earth. Yet always there is the urge to move on. The river curves, the land rises and falls, the world changes in ways subtle and grand. You sense, sometimes, that you are not just surviving, but adapting, that you are becoming something new, shaped by the demands of the land, the rhythm of water and green. The children grow quick and clever, their eyes sharp, their hands skilled at tasks you only just learned. Each generation remakes the old ways, folding the jungle's secrets into song and story. You are changed by this place, and it is changed by you. Where you camp, small clearings appear, paths trodden into mud, trees marked with cuts where you gathered sap or fruit. Over time, these scars heal, the forest closing around them, but you know you have left a mark, as it has marked you. Sometimes you pause on a high bank, looking down at the river as it winds away into haze and green. You feel the weight of distance, of time passing, wonder at how far you have come, at how much the world has changed since you left the old coast, since you last saw open sky. You remember the taste of salt, the cry of gulls, the shimmer of heat on red stone. And yet, here in the hush and shadow, you are not lost. You are only moving forward, step by careful step, into the unending green. The world is large, and the journey is far from finished. The river beckons, the jungle whispers, and your path leads on, deeper, farther, into the tangle of ancient South Asia, where every day is both challenge and wonder, where survival and adaptation twine together, growing strong and strange in the green. And so you follow the water, the hidden trails, the soft promise of another sunrise filtered through leaves. You move, you listen, you learn. The jungle becomes your home, your test, your teacher. You become part of its endless living story, woven together by shadow, water, and the slow unfolding of time. You walk north, the air growing thinner with every step, the warmth and press of jungle falling away behind you. The path is no longer soft, but rough and steep. Roots give way to stone, moss thins, sunlight pierces more directly, and the sound of water shifts from the heavy drip of rainforest to the distant rush of streams tumbling over rocks. You are following a trail, older than memory, older than names, into the shadows of the Himalayas, the world's highest mountains, standing silent and immense. There is a hush here, a reverence in the air, as if even the wind must bow to the immensity of what it passes over. You feel it in your bones. Something is changing, both in the world and within yourself. The band that walks with you is smaller now. The jungle has taken its toll. Some turned back, some found a place to stay, some lost to fever, to river, to hunger. Those who remain move with care. You sense the weight of their footsteps, the way each one listens to the silence, scans the ridges, counts the daylight hours with an instinct sharpened by necessity. There is a feeling, not quite fear, but awe, and knowing that the world here will not forgive carelessness. The climb begins slowly. You skirt the low hills at the feet of the mountains, grasslands giving way to scrub, the rivers narrowing and rushing, biting cold at your ankles. The nights are sharper, your breath hanging in the dusk. You gather wood quickly, racing the falling sun, huddle together as the fire spits and cracks, sharing the heat in a circle, as tight as kinship. The stars here are closer, or so it seems, diamond clear, blazing in the thin air. You find comfort in them, naming old constellations, inventing new stories for the sky. The elders point to the north, to a line of 3 bright points, a road for travellers, a sign that even in the wildest places, direction can be found. You listen and believe. You pack light meat, dried and wrapped in leaves, stones for tools, cloaks and skins against the cold. Everything else is left behind, a carving, a basket, a broken charm. The world has taught you that only what can be carried matters now. Each step is a gamble, food for later, or warmth for now. The wrong choice can mean misery, or worse. You learn to read the mountains as you once read the sea and the jungle. There are signs in the stone. The way a boulder is balanced tells you where snow may fall. The angle of a slope warns of landslides. The wind howling at your back might signal a change in weather or the coming of a storm. Your feet are always cold. Your hands crack, bleeding at the knuckles. Still, you climb. The air grows thin. Each breath is an effort, a shallow sip of cold that burns your chest. The world around you is changed. Less colour, more stone. Here, green clings only to the lowest slopes, where grass and tough little flowers find a foothold among the rocks. Higher up, the world is grey and white, and blue, the sky so intense it aches to look at. You pass through valleys carved by ancient glaciers, the walls rising on either side like the ribs of the world. Water rushes beneath sheets of ice, singing a song older than words. Sometimes the path leads you along a ridge so narrow that the wind seems able to lift you, to toss you from the edge into sky. You grip the rocks, steady yourself and keep moving, one slow step at a time. Your companions grow quieter here. Speech is rationed, as precious as food. There are times when you do not speak for hours, letting the crunch of gravel, the scrape of boot on stone, the distant whistle of wind fill the silence. You grow used to the sound of your own breathing, the slow drum beat of your heart. The cold is not just a sensation, but a presence, a living thing that presses in, looking for weakness. You wrap yourself in furs, in woven grass, in anything you can find. At night, you sleep close, sharing body heat, sometimes too cold even for dreams. In the darkness, you listen to the sighing of the wind, the slow crack of ice, the murmur of someone's voice reciting a story for comfort, for memory, for hope. Food grows scarce. The higher you climb, the less the world offers. Sometimes you find berries, tough and small, hidden in crevices. Sometimes a bird's egg, pilfered from a nest built in a pocket of grass. More often you rely on what you carried. Meat dried to a toughness that cracks teeth. Roots dug from the edge of melting snow. Hunger becomes constant, a tightness in your belly that never truly goes away. There are days when the sun shines and the world is dazzling, snow and ice, throwing back the light in a million tiny mirrors. You blink, squint, tie strips of bark over your eyes to spare them from the glare. On these days, there is a kind of joy in the climb, a sense that you are nearing something immense, some secret held close by the mountains for longer than you can imagine. But the weather changes quickly. Storms blow down without warning, bringing snow or hail, or a wind so fierce it flattens you against the ground. You huddle together, backs to the stone, letting the storm pass over and around. Afterward, you count each face, each body, and give thanks for those who remain. Sometimes you mourn, marking the place with a cairn of stones, a whispered blessing, a promise to remember. You move through landscapes of impossible beauty and danger, frozen lakes edged with blue ice, waterfalls tumbling from cliffs so high they vanish in mist, valleys filled with rhododendron blooming in colors that seem impossible in so harsh a place. You learn to see the world in details, the pattern of frost on a leaf, the tracks of a hare in new snow, the way a raven's shadow flickers across a white field. The path is not always up. Sometimes you drop into deep valleys, lush with grass and wildflowers, sheltered from the wind. Here you rest, gather what you can, repair your shoes, your tools, your hope. The air is still cold, but the sun is gentle. You feel for a little while the ache in your legs ease, the tightness in your chest loosen. You remember laughter, old songs, the taste of something sweet, but always, the way forward calls you. There is a path to find, a gap in the mountains that leads to another world. The old ones remember the shape of it, a line of peaks, a notch where the sun rises, the shadow of a certain rock at noon. You trust their memory, even as you wonder if you are chasing a dream. You walk in the footsteps of animals, ibex and mountain sheep, sure-footed, unhurried. Sometimes you catch sight of them, their bodies poised on a ridge, eyes bright and unafraid. You learn from them where to cross a stream, how to shelter from the wind, when to pause and wait for the storm to pass. Their paths become your own. Sometimes the world feels empty, just you, your breath, the endless sky. You wonder how far you have come, how many others have climbed these ridges, how many will follow. You remember the stories of your people, a time before mountains, when all the world was flat, when nothing stood between you and the horizon. Now the horizon is broken, shattered into peaks and shadows, and you must find your way through. In the evenings, when the wind dies and the stars emerge, you sit close to your fire, a circle tighter than ever. You speak of what you have seen, glaciers that groan and crack in the night, birds that nest in the highest rocks, the tracks of a snow leopard, so fresh it seems the animal might still be watching you from the darkness. You share your fear, your wonder, your hope that the path will soon open, that the hardest part is nearly over. You are not the first across these mountains. Sometimes you find traces, a broken tool, a piece of bone, a faded painting on a sheltered rock. The marks are old, older than your memory, but new enough to tell you that others have come this way, risked the same dangers, faced the same hunger. You wonder what they found on the other side, what stories they carried, whether they ever looked back. There are days when you wish to turn back, to find a gentler path, to return to the world of trees and rivers and soft earth, but the mountains hold you now. Their silence, their beauty, their danger, all of it is part of you. You have come too far to stop, and besides, you sense that the world you seek is just beyond the next ridge, the next pass, the next sunrise. As you climb, you learn to let go of fear, of certainty, of the need to know what comes next. The mountains demand trust, surrender, the willingness to be remade by the journey. You give yourself to the path, step by step, breath by breath, heartbeat by heartbeat. One morning, after a night spent huddled beneath an overhang, you wake to a sky so clear it feels endless. The sun rises, spilling gold over the peaks. You stand, stretch aching limbs, gather your things. The band is quiet, determined. Together, you set out, climbing the last hardest stretch toward the pass. When you reach it, the world opens. Far below, a new land unfolds. Valleys green with promise, rivers winding like silver threads, forests waiting in the haze. The air is sharp, bright, tasting of things you do not yet know. You pause, letting the wind wash over you, letting your eyes drink in the view. You remember every step, every hardship, every hope that brought you here. The journey is not over, but for this moment at the top of the world, you feel a kind of peace, a sense that you have crossed into a new chapter, that the world vast and different, beautiful waits for you to enter, to discover, to become something new. You begin your descent, cautious, hopeful, changed. The shadows of the mountains follow you, long and blue. The world below beckons. New rivers, new forests, new stories, and so you move forward, carrying the memory of the climb, the hush of the peaks, the cold fire of the stars above the highest pass, stepping down into the unknown, your heart full of the silent, patient courage of those who walk the shadows of mountains. You step down from the great mountains, breathless, your heart still caught between peaks and sky. Behind you, the Himalayas rise, immense and untouchable, their ridges lost in cloud, their silence echoing in your bones. Before you lies a new world, the edge of the steppe. The land opens, wide and empty, a plain of wind and grass and sky that rolls farther than your eyes can see. The air here is different, lighter, sharper, scented with sun-dried grass, and the musk of wild herds. You draw it into your lungs, slow and steady, letting the ache of climbing fade from your muscles. You have descended into a world both gentler and more demanding than the heights. Here, there are no walls to block your way, no forests to tangle your path, only the endless undulation of land under a restless sky. The steppe feels eternal, older than the mountains, older than memory. You see it in the sweep of grass, the flow of clouds, the shifting patterns of shadow. The land hums with a secret energy, a song of movement and distance, and time measured not in days or seasons, but in the slow, patient journey of herds. You are not alone, even before you see them. You sense the presence of animals. Antelope, wild horses, shaggy oxen, the hidden paths of wolves. You follow their trails, faint but sure, pressed into the earth by centuries of migration. Their world is one of constant motion, driven by hunger, by cold, by the promise of greener grass beyond the horizon. You become a part of this rhythm, your own journey slipping quietly into the wider pulse of life. The band you travel with has changed. The climb over the mountains has tested you all. Some are lost, some have found new companions, drawn together by hardship and hope. The faces around you are lean, eyes bright and wary. You speak less here. The land demands silence. Your words are carried away on the wind, lost in the vastness. You learn to watch the sky. The clouds are not just weather, but signal and warning, a flock of shapes rolling in from the west, bringing rain or snow or thunder. Some days, the sky is so wide and clear you feel exposed, a small figure crossing a great canvas. Other days, the wind rises, whipping the grass flat, stinging your skin with dust and grit. You wrap your cloak tighter, turn your face away, and keep warm. Food is everywhere and nowhere. The steppe gives little to the careless, but to those who learn its ways, it is generous. You follow the herds, learn to read their patterns, the way they bunch before a storm, the paths they carve to distant water holes, the marks they leave in the grass. You hunt, not often, but well, with patience and respect. Each kill is celebrated, shared, a gift that carries you a little farther. You gather roots, wild onions, bulbs, hidden beneath the earth. Sometimes you come upon a stand of berries, dark and sweet, or a thicket of wild grain that ripens gold in the sun. The band works together, each task shared. Some gather, some hunt, some keep watch for predators or other bands moving in the distance. Nights on the steppe are a revelation. The air cools quickly, the grass sighs under the touch of wind, and the stars blaze unchallenged, a river of light spilling across the sky. You make camp in shallow hollows, ringed by stones, your fire flickering against the dark. The flames are small, a beacon for those you trust, a warning for those you do not. You listen to the stories of your people, voices soft, words drifting out into the emptiness. Tales of mountain crossings, of old heroes and lost kin, of times when the land was different. The stories comfort you, give you a place in the great sweep of things. They remind you that even here, where the world feels endless and you feel small, you are not lost. You sleep lightly. The steppe is not without danger. The wind carries sounds for miles. The bark of wolves, the distant cry of something hunted, the low thunder of hooves moving at night. You take turns keeping watch, eyes searching the darkness for movement, ears tuned to the language of the wild. Morning is always cold, your breath clouding in the pale light. You rise stiff, stretch sore muscles, and wait for the sun to warm the world again. The fire is coaxed back to life, embers glowing, the scent of smoke mixing with the dawn. You eat simply a bit of dried meat, a handful of berries, water drawn from a stream or melted from last night's frost. You become a watcher of horizons. The land never ends. Not truly. It rolls and dips, hides its secrets in distant folds. Sometimes you see another band far away, a line of figures dark against the gold of grass. Moving like ghosts, you wave or call out. Sometimes meet for a day or two, sharing food, news, small comforts. There is room for all, if you keep your distance. The land is wide enough for many. The children of your band learn the ways of the steppe quickly. They run wild, racing with the wind, their hair tangled, eyes bright. They learn to track animals, to spot the distant shapes of birds that mean water is near, to build shelter from nothing but grass and stone. They grow strong and quiet, their laughter swallowed by the vastness. As the seasons turn, the steppe changes colour. In spring, it is green and tender, flowers blooming in shy bursts, the air sweet with growth. In summer, it grows gold, dry, the grass crackling underfoot, the sun a relentless weight. Autumn brings wind and storm, clouds rolling low and fast. In winter, the world flattens into white, snow drifting across the plains, the cold biting through every layer, every bone. Each season brings its own lessons. You learn to move with the herds, to shelter from the worst of the storms, to find water when the rivers shrink to icy threads. You grow used to hunger, to cold, to the constant need for vigilance, but you also find joy in the freedom of the open world, in the rush of wind, in the endless promise of tomorrow. Sometimes you come upon the bones of old camps, rings of stone, a charred log, a broken tool, half buried in the grass. You pause, touch the remnants, feel the weight of all who came before. The steppe is a place of memory, as well as motion, a map written in the stories left behind, the marks pressed into earth and sky. The band grows and shrinks with the turning of the year. Some leave, following new paths or joining other groups. New faces appear, drawn by the promise of food, of safety, of company. You welcome them, share what you have, listen to their stories. Each person carries a piece of the steppe inside them, its patience, its wildness, its strange, beautiful loneliness. There are days when the world feels too big, when the sky presses down and the wind never stops. You long for the comfort of walls, for the closeness of trees, for the certainty of mountains, but the steppe gives as much as it takes, and you learn to accept its gifts. You find music here too, the sound of wind in grass, the call of cranes flying low at dusk, the rhythm of your own footsteps on soft earth. At night you sing quiet songs, half prayer, half lullaby, voices blending with the wind, carried far into the darkness. You become part of the land, your body shaped by distance and hunger and hope. Your skin toughens, your feet harden, your eyes grow keen. You learn to wait, to watch, to listen. The steppe does not reward impatience, nor does it forgive forgetfulness. You survive by remembering the path of water, the promise of rain, the danger in a sudden silence. Some days you walk alone, drifting ahead or behind the band, letting your thoughts stretch as wide as the horizon. You dream of other places, of mountains and forests, of rivers winding through shadow, of coasts where the sea still calls. But always, the steppe draws you back, holds you in its vast embrace. You come to love the emptiness, the space to move and to be. The steppe asks nothing of you but honesty about your limits, your fears, your hopes. It teaches you to be small, and in that smallness, to find strength.
You keep moving.
The horizon never draws closer, but you walk anyway. Each day is a new lesson, a new story. The world is wide, and you are a wanderer, a spark carried by wind, a thread woven into the endless grass. At night, you watch the stars and think of all who have crossed this land before you, all who will come after. You are not alone. The steppe remembers, the wind remembers, you remember. And so you walk, onward, always onward, into the unbroken space where earth and sky meet, and time itself is measured, not in hours, but in distance and the quiet, patient courage of those who refuse to stop moving. You wake to a world of white silence, a hush, so deep it presses against your ears and fills your lungs. You are far north now, farther than you ever dreamed you could go, beyond the green sweep of the steppe, past the last stands of pine and birch, into the pale and trembling light of tundra and taiga. Here, in northern Eurasia, the land has traded the music of grass and wind for the muffled footsteps of snow, the slow creak of ice, the wild hush of ancient forests under winter's spell. The air is bitter, sharp enough to bite, and your breath streams away in small clouds. Every movement is careful, deliberate. The ground crunches beneath your feet, sometimes a thin crust of ice, sometimes a thick drift, sometimes the hard frozen ruts of animal tracks, leading from nowhere to nowhere, winding through a wilderness, so wide it almost feels like sky. Your people move differently here, every gesture pared down to necessity. You travel in smaller groups now, the band shrinking with each mile north, with each test of hunger and cold. Those who remain are strong, lean as wolves, their eyes bright and wary in the pale light. Each morning, you huddle for warmth before you rise, sharing a last dream, a last fragment of heat, before facing another day. Fire is everything. You guard your embers as if they are life itself, tucked into pouches of moss and bark, coaxed back to life in the evenings, flames dancing in the blue dusk. Without fire, the world is impossible. Food will not cook, water will not flow, sleep will not come. Every fire is a small miracle, a promise that you can endure one more night. You follow the animals, reindeer mostly, but also the tracks of wild oxen, elk, hare, and the silent paw prints of wolves and lynx. The reindeer are your compass and your measure of time. Their migrations carve lines through the snow, leading you from forest to plain, from summer grazing to winter shelter. When you find them, the world feels full. When you lose them, the land becomes emptier, hunger nipping at your heels. Sometimes you glimpse the great herds at dawn, shadows flowing across the snow, noses buried deep in drifts to find the grass below. The sight fills you with longing, a reminder that the land gives, even here, if you know how to ask. You hunt carefully, never more than you need. Each kill is a solemn gift, honored with words and with bone tools carved to remember the animal's life. Nothing is wasted. Hide becomes shelter, sinew becomes thread, bone becomes blade, or needle or ornament. The forests here are deep and old, the trees spaced wide, their trunks dark with lichen, their branches heavy with snow. The silence is alive, full of hidden movement, the sudden flash of a squirrel, the heavy wing beat of a raven, the quiet fall of snow shaken loose by the wind. Sometimes you feel watched, as if the forest itself is curious about these new travelers, wrapped in furs, eyes always searching. You learn the ways of the cold, you build shelters from snow and branches, digging into drifts to find the thickest insulation, lining the floor with dry moss and the warmth of your own bodies. You layer skins and furs, Tie strips of hide around your ankles and wrists. Seal every gap the wind might find. You sleep close, tangled in a nest of warmth and breath, listening to the slow beat of hearts in the darkness. Food is a constant concern. In summer, the world bursts open, berries crowd every bush, fish crowd the rivers, birds fill the air with frantic, greedy noise. You gather what you can, drying and smoking fish, packing berries into hollow logs, trapping small animals in clever snares. In winter, you live off what you have stored, what you can hunt, what you can remember. Hunger becomes a familiar companion, its voice sharp and insistent. The rivers and lakes here are sometimes open, sometimes locked under a skin of ice, so thick it rings like stone when struck. You learn to fish through holes cut with stone blades, to wait in silence, breath steaming, eyes fixed on the trembling line. Some days you are lucky, some days not. The world gives, the world withholds. You thank it, either way. In the brief northern summer, the land transforms green, pushes through the white, flowers appear in impossible bursts. Insects cloud the air in shimmering veils. The light never truly fades, the sun circling low in the sky, painting everything gold and silver. You travel farther in these months, moving to where the herds graze, to where the salmon fight upstream, to where old campsites yield tools and treasures left behind by those who passed before you. You find evidence of others, scraps of hide, a charred bone, the faint ring of stones marking a fire long gone, cold. You pause at these places, feeling the closeness of other lives, other journeys. Sometimes you build your own camp beside these traces, letting memory and presence mix, adding your own story to the land's long, slow song. The cold is not just an enemy, but a teacher. It teaches patience, caution, humility. It rewards preparation and punishes carelessness. You learn to listen to the wind, to read the shifting color of the sky, to judge the thickness of ice by the tone it gives under your heel. The snow is both obstacle and comfort, hard to walk, easy to shape, a blank page on which your days are written. You tell stories to fill the long nights, tales of animals who speak, of rivers that freeze and flow with their own secret will, of stars that dance and hunt and lose their way. Sometimes you watch the northern lights, curtains of green and purple and blue unfolding in the sky, moving in slow silence above the trees. The elders say they are spirits, or ancestors, or the dreams of the earth itself. You watch and wonder. The children here are quieter than those of the grasslands, but fierce, their faces red with cold, eyes bright as chips of ice. They learn to trap, to fish, to stitch warm clothes from scraps of hide, to read the language of snow and shadow. They grow up with stories whispered as the wind howls outside, tales that promise the sun will return, that the world will soften, that nothing is forever. Sometimes you move at night, the moon full and bright on the snow, the air so still you can hear your own breath. The crunch of footsteps echoes, reminding you how small you are, how far you have come. You walk carefully, each step measured, the world shrinking to the circle of your own light. You watch for predators, the hungry, the desperate. Wolves follow you at a distance, their eyes like small flames in the darkness. Sometimes they come close, drawn by the scent of meat or the heat of your fire. You respect them, honor their cunning, their endurance. Sometimes you chase them away, sometimes you leave scraps behind, a silent bargain between travelers on the edge of survival. You build what you can, tools of bone and antler, baskets woven from willow and grass, tiny carved figures to bring luck or tell stories. Your hands grow clever in the cold, your mind sharp with invention. Each new problem becomes a puzzle, each day a lesson in adaptation. The world here is demanding, but not without beauty, not without the quiet joy of discovery. You become part of the land, your rhythms matching its slow, patient heart. In winter, you wait. In summer, you move. In spring and fall, you prepare. Never certain how hard the next season will be, but always hopeful. The world here is not cruel, only indifferent, and you learn to find grace in that indifference. Sometimes you remember the old world, the green grass, the sound of surf, the heat of the desert, the taste of fruit. These memories are both comfort and ache, a reminder of how far you have come, how much you have lost and gained. You carry them with you, tucked away in the stories you tell, in the dreams you share around the fire. You learn to celebrate small things, a sudden patch of sunlight, a catch of fish pulled from under the ice, a day when the wind rests. You mark your passage with cairns of stone, a scrap of hide tied to a branch, the memory of laughter echoing in the cold air. Each sign is a promise to the future, a marker for those who will come after. You know that you are part of something larger, a wave of movement, of searching, that began long before you and will continue long after. The land remembers. The ice remembers. You remember. And so you walk through the forests and tundra, beneath auroras and ancient fir trees, your breath rising in the cold, your heart steady. Each step forward is an answer to the question the land asks. Will you endure? Each night is a promise that the sun will return, that the world will bloom again, that life will find its way even here, at the edge of the possible. You wait, you listen, you move forward. The journey is not finished. The world is still unfolding. In the hush of snow, beneath the watchful stars, you carry the memory of all who have come before, and you leave your own quiet footprints for those who will follow. Section 9 complete. Let me know when to continue with Section 10. You wake before the dawn, your breath slow, clouding in the thin, frigid air. The world is silent, but for the faint cracking of ice far away, and the distant, muffled thunder of movement beneath the crust of the earth. You are far from where your story began, north and east again, beyond the forests, beyond the tundra, where the land itself narrows to a bridge of cold, swept by wind and ancient secrets. The elders whisper that the land once stretched farther, a wide back raised out of the sea, open and empty, waiting. You do not know the word Beringia, but you walk its frozen skin, crossing from one world into another, on a path that will soon vanish beneath the rising water, forgotten by all but memory. Here, the land is not a place so much as a threshold. You are between worlds. The air tastes of ice, of the brine of distant oceans, of longing. Snow squeaks underfoot, packed hard by wind and the endless passage of small, careful feet. The sky is enormous, low and grey, sometimes lit with wild curtains of green and purple. The aurora, a silent guide, leading you across the emptiness. You do not travel alone. The band has shrunk and shifted, some turning back, some falling away, but still you are many, each one bundled in fur and hope, eyes bright above frostbitten cheeks, footsteps muffled by layers of hide. You share what you have, dried meat, smoked fish, a scrap of root dug from under a drift, a single ember carried for miles to spark the next fire. You travel in silence much of the time, your words eaten by the wind, lost in the hollow world between worlds. You measure your days by the angle of the sun, by the pain in your feet, by the slow, careful hope that something waits ahead. You feel the thinness of this land, a strip of earth neither one continent nor another, a passage that promises everything and nothing. The animals are different here. Mammoth and muskox, woolly rhino and reindeer, their shapes larger, heavier, their coats thick and shaggy against the cold. You move as they move, following the old trails etched into the frozen mud, lines of life braided and rebraided through endless winters. You hunt with patience, with skill, knowing that each arrow, each snare is a plea to the land, a request for mercy. Sometimes the land answers, sometimes it does not. There are other dangers, older than hunger. The ice itself is alive, shifting beneath you, groaning and splintering, opening cracks that can swallow a careless foot or send a band scattering in fear. You test the ground with each step, listening for the low, warning thrum that tells you to turn, to seek another way. Sometimes, in the night, a storm blows up, the world vanishing in white, the wind shrieking, so cold it feels like it will strip your skin from bone. You huddle together, bodies pressed tight, faces buried in fur, waiting for the storm to pass, for the world to return. But when the sky clears, it is blue and endless, the sun glinting on ice and snow, the horizon stretching away, unbroken, calling you on. The light here is a kind of promise of new land, of possibility, of a story that has not yet been written. Sometimes you find signs of others, footprints frozen into the mud, a circle of stones half buried by drift, the charred remnant of a fire. You pause, touch the marks, wondering if they are ahead of you or behind, if they will meet you on the journey or vanish into the white. Sometimes you find bones, mammoth, wolf, the small, curled remains of a bird or child. You offer a word, a earth, a piece of song. The land remembers, even when names are lost. You do not know what lies ahead. The old stories speak of wide rivers, of great forests, of new lands where the sun rises and sets in unfamiliar places. You have heard of strange beasts, giant sloths, saber-toothed cats, herds so vast they turn the land dark beneath their feet. You listen, and you hope, and you keep moving. You learn to trust the world's small signs. A patch of willow, rising above the snow, means a stream is near. The movement of clouds can warn of coming storms, or reveal the narrow window of clear weather you must race to cross an exposed plain. You watch the animals, learn their tricks, how to find shelter, how to wait out hunger, how to move across a world that never truly belongs to you. At night, you make camp, wherever you can, sometimes in a shallow hollow, scraped out of the snow, sometimes in the shelter of a driftwood heap, blown far from the edge of the sea. You build low fires, shielded from the wind by bodies and stone, feeding them with what little wood you find, or with dried moss, or with the bones of animals long dead. The fire is small, but fierce, a pulse of life in the heart of the cold. You share stories as the flames flicker, voices low, almost lost to the sigh of wind and the crackle of ice. The elders remind you that you have crossed many thresholds before, rivers and deserts, mountains and forests. This crossing is different, and yet the same. It is only a line drawn by the world, and lines are meant to be crossed. You dream strange dreams here, of animals you have never seen, of water rising and falling, of land disappearing, of old faces calling you back or pushing you forward. Sometimes you wake with a taste of salt in your mouth, a memory of the sea carried from some place long forgotten. Sometimes you wake with the sound of laughter in your ears, a reminder that even here, between worlds, there is room for joy. The crossing is long. Days blur together, the sun rising and setting behind clouds, the world a shifting palette of white and grey and blue. You lose track of time, measuring your progress, not in miles but in hunger, in hope, in the slow accumulation of memory. There are moments of wonder. The aurora dances overhead, a living river of light, silent and wild. Sometimes you see a herd of mammoth moving across the plain, their shadows long and strange, their breath steaming in the dawn. Sometimes the world falls utterly silent, so quiet that you can hear your own heart, your own thoughts, the whisper of old dreams carried on the wind. Sometimes you are afraid. The cold is deeper than you imagined, the land more empty. You miss the sound of birds, the smell of green things, the comfort of trees, but you are never truly alone. Each step forward is a step taken by many, by your ancestors, by your companions, by all those who will come after. You walk in the footprints of hope, and you leave your own for others to follow. The land begins to change. The ice grows thinner, the snow patchy, the ground rising in gentle swells. The air smells different, sharper, carrying the promise of pine and wild grass. You feel it in your bones, a lightening, a quickening, a sense that something new is coming. One evening, you crest a low ridge and see, far ahead, a line of trees, dark against the horizon. Beyond, the land stretches, wide and green and wild. You feel a surge of hope, a burst of energy, as if the whole journey has been leading to this moment. You are entering a new world, a world untouched, unwritten, waiting. You descend slowly, cautiously, the band spreading out, each one searching for signs of safety, of abundance, of welcome. You find streams running cold and clear, grass growing thick underfoot, animals moving in the shadows, elk, deer, the tracks of something large and unknown pressed deep into the mud. The land is alive, and you are alive with it. You make camp on the edge of the forest, building a new fire, sharing what food you have left. The night is quiet, the air filled with the unfamiliar music of a new world. Frogs singing, insects humming, the distant call of a bird you do not know. You lie awake, listening, your heart full of wonder and fear and hope. You do not know what tomorrow will bring. The land is vast, the future unwritten, but you have crossed the threshold. You have entered the Americas, not with the fanfare of kings, but with the quiet, stubborn steps of survival, of curiosity, of courage. You remember those you lost along the way, those who turned back, those who will never see this new world. You carry them with you, in your stories, in your hope, in the warmth of your fire. You are not the first to walk here, and you will not be the last. The land is patient, the world is wide. You rest, and tomorrow you will walk on. And so, under the watchful dance of the northern lights, on the far side of the vanished bridge, you close your eyes, let sleep take you, and step quietly into the heart of a new world. You wake shivering, your face pressed to rough hide, the faint glow of dying embers barely painting the inside of your shelter. The world outside is immense, silent, hungry. The Americas, new to your feet, are not gentle. The land here is young, its rivers freshly cut, its forests wild and thick, its mountains sharp as knives. The ice still lingers, not everywhere, but close enough that its breath chills your bones and its presence lingers in your dreams. You have crossed the land bridge, walked out of one world and into another, but the crossing is never finished. Each day, you push farther, deeper, south and east and south again, seeking something that only the restless heart of your kind can name. You seek warmth and food and safety. You seek what is promised by the horizon, that somewhere the world will be kinder, or at least survivable. You travel in a group, smaller now than when you started, but still a web of kin, fathers, mothers, children, old ones whose hands remember the tools and songs of a place long left behind. You all carry the memory of the crossing, a dream of mammoths and endless white, of hunger sharp as knives and hope sharper still. The youngest know only this new world, its smells and sounds, the strange birds that wake before dawn, the taste of water so cold it cracks your teeth. Hunger is the music of your days. The great ice walls are never far away. They loom to the east and the west, blue and white, shedding rivers and lakes that glitter under the sun, but freeze by dusk. You move along their edges, following game caribou, wild horse, the shuffling, dangerous shadow of bison. Sometimes you find their bones, picked clean, scattered across the gravel where the ice retreats. Sometimes, if you are lucky and quiet, you come upon them at dawn, herds bunched for warmth, steam rising from their bodies in the first light. You hunt with patience, with skill born of need. Each kill is a victory, but also a burden. The meat must be carried or cached. The bones are cleaned, the skins stretched and scraped. You give thanks, in words and in silence, to the animal and to the land. You remember the old stories, the ones about the spirit of the hunt, about the pact between animal and human, the promise that what is taken must be honored. Still, the world is not generous. Storms sweep down from the north without warning, flattening tents and snapping trees, driving you into hollows and the shallow shelter of willows. You build fires in pits, piling stones to block the wind, huddling together as the sky howls and the world vanishes in a spray of ice and snow. You sleep in fits, your dreams thin and quick, always listening for the sound of collapse, of danger, of mourning. But when the storms pass, the world is dazzling, blue sky stretching forever, snow gleaming like hammered silver, rivers breaking free of their icy shells and racing through the land. The air smells of new things, spruce and pine, the rot of last year's leaves, the sharp sweetness of melting snow. The land opens, beckons, dares you to walk farther. Sometimes the way forward is blocked by walls of ice, by lakes too wide to cross, by tangled forests so thick they close behind you, hiding the sun. You learn to adapt. You build rafts of driftwood and hide, learning to ride the rivers, letting the water carry you where your feet cannot go. The current is strong, dangerous, but it is also a promise, a way forward, a way south. Other bands travel with you, or near you, sometimes seen, more often sensed, their fires flickering on distant hills, their laughter and singing carried to you on the wind. Sometimes you meet, trading words, songs, tools, news of the land ahead. Sometimes you avoid each other, wary, trusting to the vastness to keep your secrets. Food is always uncertain. In the lean times you gnaw old bones, boil bark, chew the leathery roots of plants dug from the thawing earth. When luck turns, the world is abundant. Berries bursting on the bush, fish crowding the shallow streams, the sudden astonishing flush of wild birds in the reeds. You learn to store what you can, drying meat over smoky fires, packing berries in hollow logs, laying traps and lines for whatever the night might bring. Children are born in this world of ice and hunger. They grow quickly, learning to walk on snow as easily as grass, to wrap themselves in furs, to listen for the voice of the land in every creak of tree or rush of wind. Their laughter is sharper, their games quieter, played with sticks and bones in the shadows of the fire, always watched by the wary eyes of their elders. The old ones remember a different world. At night, they tell stories of the crossing of days, so cold, even hope seemed frozen, of animals, so huge, their footprints became ponds, of songs sung to the northern lights, when the world seemed made only of ice and hunger. Their voices crack, but their eyes are bright, remembering not just the pain, but the wonder, the moment when they stepped onto new land, the feeling that everything, every hardship, every loss had led them here. You mark your days by the shape of the land, by the color of the sky, by the taste of water and the smell of the wind. You keep moving, always moving, following the retreating ice, seeking the promise of warmth. Sometimes you find traces of others, a circle of stones, a broken spear point, a tangle of footprints, leading away from a fire long gone cold. You pause, touch the evidence, wondering who they were, whether they found what you now seek. Seasons change, slowly at first, then all at once. The snow recedes, leaving behind a world scraped bare, rocks scoured smooth, rivers running wild, forests inching north as the sun climbs higher. The days grow longer, the nights soft with new growth. You watch the land come alive, flowers poking through the last patches of snow, trees budding, birds returning from journeys as long and dangerous as your own. You cross open plains, your feet sinking in mud where the ice has only just let go. The air is full of insects, thick and relentless. You slap at them, curse them, but know they mean life. The world is waking, hungry and wild. You gather eggs from nests, wild onions from the banks, berries so sweet they stain your hands and lips. You move along rivers, following their bends, reading their moods. Some are swift and angry, cutting through rock and forest, their banks slick and treacherous. Others are wide and slow, their surfaces broken only by the leap of fish, the ripple of otters playing in the shallows. You build canoes from bark and hides, learning to balance, to paddle, to trust the river to carry you forward, even as it threatens to overturn you at every bend. Life danger is everywhere, ice breaking beneath your feet, predators in the shadows, the ever-present risk of getting lost in a world that is still new, still wild. You move with caution, but also with excitement. Each new day is a question, a challenge, a promise. You come upon herds of giant animals, mammoth and mastodon, sloths so large they leave tunnels through the undergrowth, herds of horses and camels that seem to stretch to the horizon. The hunt is dangerous, exhilarating. You work together, driving the animals toward traps or cliffs, using fire and noise and patience. A successful hunt means life for many days. A failed one means hunger, the need to move again. You use every part of what you take. Meat for food, hide for shelter, bone for tools, sinew for thread. You carve stories into ivory, beads from shell, amulets from teeth and claw. You become artists as well as survivors, your hands making beauty from the memory of the hunt, your hearts holding stories that grow richer with every passing season. In the evenings you gather by the fire, faces glowing in the half-light, eyes reflecting the flicker of flame and the wild, vast darkness beyond. You sing, you tell stories, you remember, you watch the stars and wonder what lies beyond the next hill, the next river, the next year. You are never truly settled. Even when you build shelters that last for weeks, even when the land is kind, you know that movement is your inheritance, your gift and your burden. The world demands it. The land calls you onward. The ice still lingers. The rivers beckon. The forest waits. You sleep close, listening to the wind, to the breathing of your companions, to the old song of hope that brought you here and will carry you farther still. The Americas are vast, wild, unfinished. You are writing the first lines of a story that will stretch for millennia, in footsteps, in laughter, in the hard-won memory of survival. When the morning comes, you wake, gather what you have, and step forward again, into the chill, into the hope, into the uncertain, beautiful promise of the land. You walk, you listen, you remember, and always you move forward, carried by hunger, by curiosity, by the endless dream of warmth and belonging and home. You wake in the half-light, the world trembling around you, mist clinging to your hair, the ground beneath soft and spongy. Neither holy land nor holy water. Somewhere nearby, a heron lifts itself from the reeds, with a single, startled cry, wings beating the dawn into motion. The air smells of salt and rain, and distant earth, and for a moment, you don't know if you are dreaming or drifting or simply awake on the edge of something vast. Your band has followed the rivers to the sea, and the sea to its secret places, estuaries and lagoons, tangled forests of mangrove, wide deltas where the world breaks open into 1,000 creeks and islands. The old paths have led you here, but now the land ends. The horizon blurs. All that lies ahead is water, shifting and endless, heavy with promise and warning. You are at the edge again, not just of a continent, but of knowing. The elders remember stories from before, dreams of islands that rise from the mist, of birds returning each season from places unseen, of currents that tug at fish and leaves, and even the driftwood that washes ashore. Some stories are warnings of storms that swallow boats, of spirits who live in the deep, of ancestors who set out and never returned. But other stories are invitations, gentle as the wind. There is land out there, and it is waiting for the bold. Here on the ancient coasts of Sunda and Sahul, the old world is coming apart at its seams. The sea is rising, slowly, quietly, covering the land that once joined Asia to the islands and the islands to Australia. Forest becomes swamp, swamp becomes bay, and the tide rises and falls, erasing every line you once trusted. What was solid becomes water, and the world remakes itself with every moon. But humans are patient, curious, hungry for the next horizon. You watch the tides, listen to the language of wind and wave. You learn from the sea's animals, the dugongs and sea turtles, the sharks and dolphins, the birds that fly farthest and return with their feathers salt-streaked and their bellies full. You gather shellfish, build fish traps from stone and stick, mend nets from twisted roots and long grass. You taste the world with your feet, your hands, your tongue, learning the flavors of tide and brine and the green, slippery things the water leaves behind. You are not alone in your curiosity. Sometimes you wake to find others camped nearby, bands from upriver, from distant headlands, from islands, just visible on the horizon when the air is clear. They bring gifts, obsidian blades from a mountain far away, beads carved from shells you have never seen, stories of ancestors who built rafts and paddled into the dawn. Slowly, quietly, you begin to wonder, what if? What lies beyond the blue edge of the world? Can you leave the land and find something new? Something no one has seen? The question grows inside you, sharp as hunger, patient as tide. The first journeys are small, a dugout, hollowed with fire and stone, big enough for a single child to fish among the reeds, a raft of bamboo, lashed tight with vine, pushed out onto the bay when the moon is full and the water calm. You learn quickly, a boat must float. It must be strong enough to carry you, light enough to push from shore, wide enough to ride the waves that slap and twist with every gust of wind. You test the currents, pushing out a little farther each time, past the reeds, past the sandbars where the herons fish, past the breakers that mark the true beginning of open water. Sometimes you are swept back to shore, dizzy and drenched, to laughter and gentle scolding from the old ones. Sometimes you drift so far you lose sight of land, panic swelling inside you, heart pounding, until the wind or a lucky current turns you homeward again. But slowly, your courage grows. You learn to watch the sky, to read the clouds and the flight of birds, to feel the water's mood beneath your hands. You notice patterns. The tides are strongest at the new moon, the wind gentlest before dawn, the fish running best when the water is warm, and the seaweed thick and green. You mark the days and nights, the stars rising and setting, the way the moon's face changes, brightening and fading as if it were watching your progress. The band comes together to build something bigger, a raft sturdy enough for families, for bundles of food and water, for the old woman who cannot walk as far as she once did, for the children who will carry the journey's memory forward. You weave mats from pandanus, lash bamboo with vines, seal the cracks with pitch or wax, anything that will hold back the sea. You make paddles from driftwood, shaped smooth by 1,000 waves, and you carve notches to count the days, to keep courage alive when the sky closes in. The first crossing is not a leap, but a drift, a test of patience, of faith. You wait for the tide, for the wind, for the omen that tells you now is the time. The old ones offer prayers to the ancestors, to the spirits of sea and sky, to the sun that will rise ahead and the stars that will light your way by night. You push out, the land shrinking behind you, the water opening ahead. At first the world is familiar, the cry of gulls, the taste of salt, the movement of oars in time with your heart. But soon the land is a memory, the sky wider than you've ever known, the water a rolling, endless presence beneath your feet. You watch for signs. A floating branch means a storm upriver. A cloud of birds means land is near, even when you cannot see it. Sometimes you drift for hours with nothing but sky and wave, the sun burning, the wind rising and falling, the water darkening under clouds that promise rain. The children grow restless. The old ones sing to keep fear at bay, and you remind yourself you are not lost, you are only in between. At last, when your arms ache and your voice is hoarse, you see it, a low shape on the horizon, a smudge of green and brown, land. You cry out. The raft surges forward, the paddles digging deeper, stronger, hope blooming in every muscle. You come ashore, stumbling on legs unused to solid ground, laughter and tears mingling as you collapse into the sand, the world spinning around you. The island is new. Everything smells different. Flowers, thick and sweet, trees with leaves as wide as your face, birds that call in voices you do not know. You move slowly, careful and quiet, reading the signs. What is safe to eat? What is best left alone? Where the fresh water runs, where the storms will hide.
You are not the first.
Sometimes you find the firing of another band, the mark of a tool in the soft wood of a fallen tree, the faint echo of song at dusk. You greet the new arrivals with caution, then with curiosity, then with joy, sharing food, stories, dreams. The sea does not divide. It connects. Each crossing is a stitch, binding islands together, weaving new families, new alliances, new maps in memory and song. Seasons pass, the sea changes, the crossings become easier, more certain, though never without risk. Sometimes a storm scatters boats, or a raft vanishes, or the wind carries you so far you must learn the shape of an unknown island by heart before you can ever hope to return. You begin to travel farther, braver. You learn to carry fire in a sealed shell, to pack food in layers of leaf and bark, to watch the stars and memorize their rising and setting. The children grow up on water, their hands as sure on a paddle as on a spear, their laughter echoing across the waves as they race from island to island, inventing games with the tides. You come at last to the wide southern continent, the ancient land of Sahul, where Australia and New Guinea and Tasmania are still joined by bridges of low land and shallow sea. The journey is long, the water sometimes wild, the land itself ancient and strange. Here the sun is harsher, the trees taller, the animals cautious and unafraid. You step ashore the first of your kind, and the birds scatter before you, their wings bright as flame. The land is a puzzle, red earth, green jungle, wide rivers, mountains that shimmer with heat. You taste the world slowly, learning its rules, its gifts, its dangers. There are new foods, nuts with shells, so hard you need fire to crack them, roots that poison unless baked in ash, honey hidden in the trunks of ancient trees. You learn from every mistake, every success, weaving the knowledge into the story of your people. The ocean remains, a living presence, always calling, always whispering. There is more. There is always another island, another place where the world is waiting. You answer with your courage, your invention, your quiet faith in the power of moving forward. At night, you sit on the sand, listening to the waves folding and unfolding, feeling the pulse of the world beneath your feet. The stars burn overhead, bright and close, mirrored in the black water. You tell the children stories of the land you left behind, of the crossing, of the spirits who ride the wind and the ancestors who watch from the moon. You remember every island, every storm, every moment when hope was almost lost but never quite given up. You do not know the word for discovery. You do not call yourselves explorers. You are only people, making your way, following the shape of the land and the pull of the sea, trusting that each new horizon will bring what you need. And so you drift, you paddle, you sail, you leave footprints on 100 shores, names whispered into the wind, memories carried like shells in a woven pouch. The world grows wider, more wondrous, more uncertain with every crossing, but you keep moving, held up by hope, by curiosity, by the endless, patient dreaming of the sea. You sleep with the salt still on your skin, the sound of waves in your ears, your heart beating in time with the tide. The journey is not finished. The world is not yet known. You drift and dream and wait for morning, when the horizon will beckon again, and the sea will open like a path, and you will follow. You wake to a world breathing with heat, the air dense and humming, insects rising in a golden mist as the first sun touches the treetops. The land is old here, older than you can imagine, older than the mountains, older even than the rivers that carved their winding stories across the face of Sahul. This is Australia, ancient and vast, a continent whose secrets run deeper than roots, older than rain. You are far inland now, away from the edge of the sea, following a trail that disappears and reappears with the whims of the wind. The coast is a memory, salt crusting your skin, the taste of fish and sea grape, the hush of waves at night. Now the world is all shimmering heat and open space. Your feet sink into red earth, warm as fresh bread, dust lifting in fine motes that catch the sun, swirling around your ankles as you walk.
Your band is small again, shaped by necessity, by hunger, by the endless challenge of this new land. You have left behind the tangled forests and broad rivers, the salt marshes, the driftwood camps where the sea always called you home. Here the sky is a bowl, endless and blue, the sun a white fire at its heart. You measure your days by thirst, your nights by the song of insects and the mournful call of distant owls.
Water is life, and the land offers it sparingly. You wake before dawn, listening for the soft, secret voice of running water, a trickle hidden beneath sand, a spring bubbling up from the foot of a stone. Sometimes you find a billabong, its surface cool and shaded, fringed with reeds and lilies, dragonflies hovering like small jeweled lanterns. You kneel and drink, the water tasting of mud and sky, and the faint memory of rain. You fill your gourds, bless the place, and mark it for return. Most days, though, the search for water is a lesson in patience and memory. You watch the animals, kangaroo and wallaby, wild dog and emu, tracking their movements, learning which paths lead to shelter and which to death. The old ones teach you to read the land. A patch of green means roots below. The flight of birds at dusk means water somewhere in the dark. Sometimes you dig, hands raw and aching, until a muddy trickle seeps into your palm, precious as fire. Food is everywhere, but never easy. You learn to hunt the new animals, swift and strange, kangaroos that bound away at the first crack of a twig, possums hidden in tree hollows, lizards basking on sun-warmed stones. You set snares, watch and wait, invent new ways to use spear and boomerang, and trap. The world is generous and unforgiving, testing your skill and your resolve with every step. You gather too. Tubers that grow deep beneath the soil, yams that must be roasted in ashes to tame their bitterness, nuts with shells, so hard you crack them between stones. You learn which berries will nourish, which will sicken, which must be shared with birds and not tasted at all. There is honey here, hidden in the hives of wild bees, sweet and golden, found only by patience and the careful watch for the tiny purposeful path of bees through sunlit air. You learn the names of things, names that sing of this place, quandong and wattle, mile and mulga, spinifex and coolabah. Every name is a map, a memory, a lesson handed from mouth to mouth, old as fire, new as the morning. Fire becomes your greatest ally. The land is shaped by fire, its promise and its threat. You learn to keep the old flames alive, to carry embers in a shell or a hollowed stick, to spark new fires with dry wood and careful hands. You use fire to clear paths, to drive game, to coax new growth from the earth. The world smells of smoke, a sweet and bitter perfume that marks both survival and reverence. Your shelters change, no longer woven huts beside the sea, but low lean-tos of bark and branch, caves carved from ancient stone, windbreaks of grass and earth. You sleep wrapped in furs, the heat of bodies pressed close against the chill that creeps in after sunset. The stars overhead are unfamiliar, new constellations spinning across the bowl of night, the emu in the sky, the seven sisters, the shape of an ancestor watching over you, silent and bright. The old ones tell stories, stories as old as the rocks, as deep as the rivers, as mysterious as the tracks of lizards in morning dust. They speak of dream time, when the world was made and remade by the travels of great beings, serpents and kangaroos, eagles and men, all shaping the land with song and journey and memory. Every hill, every stone, every billabong is a place of story, of meaning. You walk with care, knowing you are treading the living surface of myth. Sometimes the land grows harsh, beyond bearing. The wind rises, carrying dust in red veils that blind and choke. The sun burns without mercy, baking the earth until it cracks. Waterholes vanish, and the animals grow scarce and thin. You learn to wait, to move slowly, to trust in memory and skill. Sometimes you sing to the land, low and rhythmic, calling for rain, for food, for the safe passage of your band. But there are days of abundance too. The rains come, sudden and wild, drenching the earth, filling every hollow with water, painting the land green in a riot of new life. Flowers bloom overnight, bluebells and wattles, paper daisies and lilies, a fleeting festival of colour before the sun returns and the world dries out again. The rivers swell and run wild, and the fish return, silver and quick, to be trapped and feasted on while they last. You learn to travel in circles, to follow the rhythms of the land. Each year, you return to the places where food is sure, where water remains even in drought, where the stories are strongest. You leave signs, scratches on bark, stones stacked in patterns, paths worn into the grass, to guide those who follow, to remind yourself that even in the wildest land, memory is a map. You meet others, sometimes bands traveling their own circles, families bound by kin and song, all weaving their paths across the continent. Sometimes you share a fire, a hunt, a story. Sometimes you pass in silence, nodding in respect, each band guarding its secrets, its songs, its memory of land. Children grow fast in this world, lean and wild, their skin bronzed by sun, their eyes sharp, their laughter quick and bright. They learn to climb and dig, to trek and wait, to listen to the stories hidden in every stone and tree. Their games are stories too, rehearsals for the long, patient work of survival, for the magic of making something from almost nothing. You make art in this land, painting on rock, carving in wood and bone, leaving handprints on cave walls, red and white and ochre, marking your presence for the generations to come. You dance at night, stamping the earth, calling up the memory of ancestors and animals, singing the land awake with each careful step. The stories live not just in words but in movement, in pattern, in the shape of your hands against the stone.
Danger is never far away. There are snakes here. Their colors a warning and a wonder. Spiders spin their webs in every hollow. The land hides what it loves. Then you learn caution, never reaching blindly, always testing, always listening. But the world is more generous than cruel, and for every threat there is a gift. The coolness of shade beneath a spreading gum tree, the sweetness of water after days of thirst, the wild laughter that rises when the hunt is good and the band is safe.
You come to know the land as home, not a place to be conquered or crossed, but a companion, a parent, a living book. Every journey is a conversation, every return a reunion. The world is not yours, but you belong to it, written into the earth, with every footstep, every song, every breath. As you lie beneath the stars, your body warmed by fire and kin, you listen to the night, the sigh of wind through grass, the hush of a dingo on the hunt, the distant, restless beat of the land's own dreaming. You know you are part of something vast, a story so old it has no beginning, so wide it has no end. You sleep holding the memory of water in your mouth, the promise of rain in your dreams, the heartbeat of the red earth steady beneath your own. When morning comes, you rise, shake the dust from your skin, and move on, trusting in the land, in your people, in the quiet, ancient hope that always waits beyond the next hill. You wake before dawn, the sky a pale hush above you, and breathe in air that is crisp and cold and tinged with the memory of mist. You are deep in the heart of a new continent, far from any ocean's edge, far from the rains and rivers you once followed like a thread through the world's tapestry. Now the land stretches all around you in a vast rolling plain, broken only by the slow rise and fall of low hills, the deep cut of winding rivers, and the wide open bowl of sky. This is the heart of North America, ancient and wild, a world of prairie and plain and forest, where the grass ripples like water beneath the wind. Here you are both alone and not alone. Herds move across the land in numbers, so great they shake the earth. Bison and horse, antelope and mammoth, the slow, heavy tread of mastodon. Wolves run along the edges, quick and hungry, their eyes always watching, always learning. You walk among giants, but your own band is small, stitched together by need and by the long, slow weaving of kinship. The cold here is different, not the killing cold of Arctic nights, but a clean, biting chill that seeps into your bones and makes the fire a necessity, not a luxury. Your breath comes in clouds. Your footprints mark the frost, fading as the sun rises. Each day, you move. Sometimes you follow the rivers, their banks crowded with willow and alder, thick with birds, and the chitter of squirrels and chipmunks. Sometimes you cross open prairie, the grass tall as your waist, golden and thick with seeds. Sometimes you move through forests, so old their trunks are black with age, moss hanging in curtains, the air rich and green, and alive with the sigh of wind in high branches. Food is the measure of your path. You hunt the bison, patient and clever, working together to drive them toward hidden traps or waiting spears. You watch the deer, the great herds of elk, the flight of birds at dawn and dusk. The hunt is long and slow, a dance of waiting, of reading the land, of knowing when to move and when to be still. Every successful hunt is a feast, a celebration, a promise that you can remain in this wild, open place for a little while longer. You gather what the land offers. Berries ripen in late summer, black and red and purple, staining your hands and mouth. Nuts fall with the first winds of autumn, hidden by squirrels but found by clever hands. Roots wait under the frost, dug out with patience and the memory of old stories. You learn to dig, to roast, to dry and store, making the bounty of summer last through the lean winter months. The land here is shaped by fire, as much as by water. Sometimes, lightning splits the sky, setting the grass alight. The flames roar across the prairie, devouring everything in their path, and leaving behind a new green promise. You learn to use fire to clear old grass, to drive game, to mark the passing of seasons with the smoke that drifts toward the stars. Your shelters are simple, made from hides and poles, from grass and bark, always ready to be taken down, packed up, moved to the next camp when the land asks for it. Some nights you sleep beneath the open sky, the stars bright and sharp and endless. You learn the constellations, old friends now, their stories whispered in the darkness, as the wind tugs at your hair and the night wraps you in its cold, clear arms. The children grow quick and wild in this place. They chase each other through the grass, learn to creep silently among the rocks, practice with small spears and bows made from saplings. They listen to the old ones, learning the ways of the hunt, the memory of the land, the secret places where water lingers when the streams run dry. Their laughter is part of the world's song, rising above the rustle of grass and the howl of wolves. You learn the language of the land. Every season has its own lesson, its own challenge. In spring, the world wakes in a riot of green flowers blooming, birds returning, rivers swollen with snowmelt. The air smells of rain, of earth, of new beginnings. In summer, the grass grows tall, the sun fierce and bright, the world full of abundance and the promise of fatness. Before the coming cold, autumn brings colour, leaves turning gold and red, the air sharp and sweet, the herds moving south in long, slow rivers of muscle and bone. In winter, the world shrinks, the days short and the nights long, the land held tight by frost and silence. Sometimes the weather changes without warning, a storm blowing in from the west, the sky black and wild, thunder rolling across the land like the feet of 1,000 running bison. You gather your band close, sheltering behind rocks or beneath the low branches of a tree, feeling the world shake with the fury of wind and rain. Afterward the air smells clean, the grass flattened, the rivers swollen and dangerous. You leave your mark on this land. Trails pressed into the grass, stones stacked as markers, the remains of old fires, blackened and cold. You carve stories into bone and wood, paint your dreams on rocks hidden in the shelter of bluffs, sing songs that name every hill, every river, every bend in the path. The land is a book, and you are both reader and writer, learning its language and adding your own line to its endless story. You meet others, bands following their own migrations, their own cycles of hunger and abundance. Sometimes you share a fire, a meal, a story. Sometimes you trade tools for beads, meat for berries, songs for laughter. Sometimes you pass in silence, each band wary, each holding its knowledge close, trusting to the wide world to keep peace. Danger is never far. Wolves hunt the same paths as you. Bears wake in the spring, hungry and unpredictable. The weather itself can turn against you. Cold so deep it cracks your lips, heat so fierce it withers the grass. Drought that dries the rivers to threads. You learn to move, to listen, to trust the old signs, a change in the wind, a sudden silence in the birds, the shape of clouds at dusk. But the land also gives comfort. The heat of a fire, the taste of meat after hunger, the laughter of children as the stars come out. You rest in the arms of kin, safe for a night, the world quiet around you, the future held close in dream. You make tools from stone and bone, crafting blades sharp enough to skin a bison or carve a story into a piece of driftwood. You learn to stitch hides, to shape needles, to twist sinew into cord, to build what you need from what the world offers. Every tool is a memory, a hunt, a journey, a night spent beside a river as the snow melted and the frogs sang. The prairie is not empty. It holds stories in every blade of grass, every scatter of bone, every echo of footsteps across the plain. You learn to listen to the wind, to the land, to the voice that rises inside you in the hush before dawn. The land remembers. You remember. Sometimes you stop and look back, the trail behind you lost in grass, the fires of old camps, cold and distant, the memory of the sea, a faint, salty ache at the edge of thought. You wonder how far you have come, how many have walked this way before you, how many will follow. You walk not just for yourself, but for all those who are woven into your story, ancestors, children, the animals who feed you, the land that holds you. You rest, you wait, you rise again, gathering your band, your tools, your hope, and walk forward into the wide waiting land, the sky stretching above you, the grass sighing beneath your feet, the memory of old migrations humming in your blood. And in the hush of the prairie night, as the wind sings through the grass and the stars turn overhead, you know you are home for now. But the journey never ends. The world is wide, and your footsteps are part of its story, old as time, new as the morning. You wake with the river's song in your ears, a gentle, ceaseless sound, softening the silence between heartbeats. The morning is cool, a fine mist rising from the water, wrapping the world in silver and the promise of movement. You do not open your eyes right away, letting the hush settle around you, feeling the soft earth beneath your back, the comforting warmth of sleeping kin nearby, the faint, resinous scent of last night's fire. You are no longer a stranger to this land. The wide, rich valleys of the Americas have shaped you, taught you their seasons, their subtle abundance. This river, one of many, is your current home, your path, your source of food and story. Your band is larger now, shaped by the gentle generosity of the land. Children wake laughing, running toward the water's edge, their footprints small and close, quickly erased by the flow of river and time. The elders rise slowly, stretching sore backs, tending to the fire, sharpening old tools. New faces have joined you, travelers from upstream, bands met by chance and now bound by food and song, and the quiet companionship of many winters shared. Shelter is a patient craft here. Sometimes you build with wood frames, lashed with cord, covered with bark, or hide, or woven mats of reeds. Sometimes in winter, you seek the warmth of caves, or dig shallow pits into the earth, lining them with ferns and the memory of fire. The river's banks offer both bounty and danger, soft enough for roots to take hold, but also for water to rise swiftly, suddenly, when the rains come or the snow melts far upstream. Your days are shaped by the river's moods. When the water is low, you wade across, exploring new ground, gathering stones for tools, tracking deer through open meadows. When the water runs high and wild, you stay close, repairing shelters, telling stories, mending nets. Sometimes the river floods, sweeping away camps, scattering your carefully gathered stores. When that happens, you grieve what is lost, comfort one another, and begin again. You are travelers, still. The world invites you onward. Some years you move downstream with the salmon, camping at old places remembered by story and by stones worn smooth by many hands. Other times you climb the ridges above the river, looking for berries, for game, for the hidden lakes that reflect the sky and hold the promise of another, quieter abundance. Every journey is a weaving, past and present, hunger and plenty, memory and discovery. Children thrive in this land. They learn by doing, how to weave baskets from river grass, how to set a fish trap, how to find the sweet root buried deep beneath thorn and stone. They invent games with stones and sticks, their laughter a constant music, sometimes wild, sometimes shy. The world is their teacher, and you watch with pride and a touch of awe as each generation grows a little bolder, a little wiser, a little more at home among the river's secrets. The river is a path, not a boundary. Bands come and go, travelling by dugout canoe, by raft, by foot along well-worn trails. You meet them at fords and crossings, sometimes trading shells for ochre, fish for flint, stories for song. Sometimes you marry into other bands, braiding your stories together, making new kin out of strangers and old friends out of distant cousins. The land is wide, but never empty. Every bend in the river holds a memory, a footprint, a name. There are dangers, as always. The water is swift, sometimes treacherous, its calm surface hiding snags and swirling currents. Bears and wolves haunt the forests, cautious but bold when hunger presses. Sometimes a fever sweeps through the camp, or a wound festers in the damp, or a child goes missing in the tall grass. You respond as you always have, with patience, with care, with the quiet, stubborn will to keep moving, keep hoping, keep holding tight to the thread of life. Your art grows more complex. You carve the memory of fish and deer and bird into bone and wood. You paint with red ochre and charcoal, tracing hands, animals, the long curving line of the river itself onto cave walls and stones. You make music with bone flutes, with drums made from hollow logs, with voices that rise together at dusk, echoing along the water, until it is hard to know if the world is singing you or you are singing the world. You mark the passage of time by the river's changes, the flood, the fall, the slow return of green after winter's cold. The old ones tell you the world is always turning, always remaking itself, and your task is not to conquer, but to adapt, to listen, to remember. When someone dies, you lay them to rest beside the water, their grave marked with stones and song, trusting that the river will carry their memory as it carries all things, slowly, inevitably, into the wide embrace of the world. Sometimes you dream of other places, the old trails through the prairie, the forest where the sun barely touches the ground, the far, distant coast where the sea breathes in and out. But the river is home for now. It holds you, teaches you, demands your respect and your gratitude, and sometimes your sorrow. You know that you are not the first to walk these banks, nor will you be the last. You find traces of others, an old hearth, a lost bead, the faint groove of a canoe dragged up from the water centuries before. Each sign is a comfort, a reminder that the river remembers, that all journeys are part of a larger story. As night falls, you gather around the fire, the flames reflected in the slow, secret movement of the river. You tell stories of floods and feasts, of hunts and games, of ancestors whose names are now as smooth and familiar as the stones you hold in your hands. You listen to the frogs and crickets, the night birds calling, the splash of fish in the shallows. You sleep to the lullaby of water, the soft, unending movement of time. The journey is not over. In the morning, you will wake, gather what you need, and follow the river onward, sometimes to a new camp, sometimes just a new day. You are never truly lost, not while the river runs, not while the stories flow from mouth to mouth, not while you remember the old paths and make new ones with every step. You wait, you rest, you move again. The land is patient, and so are you. The world is wide, and the river is your companion, your challenge, your guide. And somewhere in the darkness, the future waits, turning slowly in the currents, ready to begin again with the coming of the dawn. You wake in darkness, breath quiet and slow, the world folded around you in a blanket of warmth and familiar scent. For a moment you do not know if it is the middle of the night or the beginning of the day, and it does not matter. The hush outside your shelter is deep, alive with distant insect song, the slow crackle of cooling embers, the heartbeat of a continent turning beneath you. This is not the first morning you have woken in this new world. You have wandered its forests, crossed its grasslands, followed its rivers, learned its mountains and marshes, and yet it still feels fresh, still filled with the mystery of promise. You have crossed oceans and deserts and mountains, watched the world change again and again, and you have changed with it, slowly, gently, as the land demanded. You rise, careful not to wake the sleeping bodies around you, and step into the cool air beneath the faintest edge of dawn. The stars overhead are pale and patient, reluctant to give way to the coming day. There is no rush now. The work of survival is slower, more certain. The land you once feared is now your partner. The world, once vast and wild and unknowable, is a little more familiar, but it is not finished with you. Your camp is quiet, scattered among the low trees at the edge of a wide, shimmering plain. The grass is silver with dew, bending under your footsteps, the earth beneath springy and alive. You hear the distant bellow of bison, the low yip of wolves far off, the flutter of birds waking in the thicket. The river nearby glows with the last traces of starlight, a promise of water and food and movement, the soft engine that has carried your people ever onward. You kneel and drink, the cold biting your lips, shocking you fully awake. The world is gentle in this moment, its dangers held at a distance, its gifts close at hand. You find satisfaction in the small things, the warmth of your breath in the chilly air, the crunch of grass under your feet, the quiet certainty that there is enough for now. The band wakes slowly, rising from sleep one by one, each carrying a dream from the night. The children come first, laughing, chasing each other through the mist, inventing games with sticks and river stones. The elders follow, slower but no less curious, their faces etched with the maps of many journeys, their hands steady as they tend the fire, mend the nets, prepare the first meal. You gather together, eating in the dawn, your voices low and contented. There is no hunger here, not this morning, only the calm work of living, a fish to be cleaned, a basket to be woven, a song to be sung to greet the new sun. The land is awake, and you are awake within it, as much a part of the morning as the birds and the wind and the slow drift of cloud. But you know, everyone knows that the world is always changing. The season is shifting, the sun is higher, the days a little longer, the grass a little taller, the herds restless on the horizon. Somewhere a storm is building, a flood is waiting, a fire is dreaming of its run across the prairie. You feel it in your bones. It is time to move again. You do not rush. There is a rhythm to leaving, a sequence of care. The tools are gathered. The fire is doused, its memory packed away in embers, its promise carried forward. The food is divided. What will last? What must be eaten soon? What can be left behind for the birds and the land? The youngest are wrapped and lifted, the old ones supported. Each person is counted, each belonging checked. The camp is left as you found it, marked only by footprints, by the ashes of fire, by the quiet memory of laughter under the stars. The journey begins, as it always does, with a step, a look back, a silent promise that you will remember this place, this morning, this shared, fragile peace. The land opens ahead, brightening as the sun climbs. The band moves together, sometimes strung out along the riverbank, sometimes gathered close in the shadow of a cottonwood or the bend of the stream. The path is both familiar and new, shaped by the memory of old trails and the unpredictability of weather, of animals, of change. You walk for hours, sometimes in silence, sometimes singing, sometimes telling stories, old ones, about the first crossing, the first hunt, the first fire, new ones, invented for the children, for the moment, for the joy of creation. The landscape changes beneath your feet. Forest gives way to plain, plain to marsh, marsh to rocky outcrop, then back again. You learn each place by its gifts and its challenges, the taste of its water, the sound of its wind, the secret places where food can be found or danger might wait. As the sun climbs higher, you rest in the shade, share food, watch the clouds drift, slow and gentle. The old ones speak softly of the world as it was, how the rivers have shifted, how the herds move differently now, how the land itself seems to change, inch by inch with every passing year. You realize you are living at the edge of great transformations, the world warming, the glaciers shrinking, new plants and animals arriving from the south, the old ones vanishing. You are a witness to the great remaking of the earth, a quiet partner in its dreaming. The children gather round, listening with wide eyes. They do not fear the future. To them the world is always new, always ready to be explored, tasted, named. Their questions are endless. Why do the birds fly north? Where does the river go? Will there be strawberries at the next camp? You answer what you can. Invent what you must, weaving knowledge and story together into the beginnings of memory. The afternoon is spent in movement, crossing a river on fallen logs, picking berries in a sunny meadow, tracking the footprints of a fox through soft mud. The band spreads out, each person finding their place in the world, each step another line in the story you are all writing together. Sometimes you are silent, lost in thought, walking in rhythm with your own heartbeat. Sometimes you are caught in laughter, in a sudden burst of running, in the wonder of finding a nest full of eggs, or a patch of wild onions ready for the pot. There is danger, always snakes in the grass, the sudden squall of rain that turns the path to mud, the silent, watchful eyes of wolves in the dusk. But you have learned to trust the world, to trust yourself, to move with caution and with courage. You carry the memory of every crossing, every hardship, every lesson learned by firelight and hunger and the slow, hard work of living. You know how to adapt. You know how to endure. As evening falls, you find a new place to camp, a high bank above the river, safe from flood, sheltered from the wind, open to the stars. The fire is built, the water fetched, the food shared. The children gather close, the elders tell stories. The world grows quiet as the first stars appear. You feel a deep contentment, a sense of belonging, not just to your band, but to the land itself, to the endless unfolding story of movement and hope and becoming. The night deepens, the fire burns low, the band drifts into sleep. One by one, curled in blankets, wrapped in warmth, held by the quiet promise that tomorrow will come, that the world will continue, that you will wake and walk again. And as you lie beneath the vast, indifferent sky, you let yourself drift, half awake, half dreaming, carried by the memory of rivers and mountains, of crossings and camps, of all the hands that have held yours, all the feet that have walked beside you, all the lives that have made this journey possible. You know, in the gentle hush of night, that you are not alone, that every step you take is part of a dance, older than language, wider than the world you can see, that the land remembers, that you remember, that somewhere ahead, just out of sight, the next dawn waits, and with it the endless invitation to begin again. Now, as your story slows, let the journey grow gentle, the world dissolve into a hush of memory and rest. The rivers, the mountains, the plains, all drift into dream, carrying your body and mind deeper into comfort, farther from the hurry and noise of the waking world. Every hardship is behind you. The fire's warmth settles into your bones. Even the farthest horizon feels near and kind. The band you travelled with are only gentle shadows now, breathing quietly, safe in the heart of the world. You have crossed deserts and mountains. You have tasted salt and hunger, endured cold and heat, learned to move when the world moved, learned to rest when the land allowed. You have followed stars, rivers, the call of geese, the voice of memory. You have survived. Now let it all fall away. Let the story soften. Let your breath grow slow and deep. your body heavy and safe. The past will be here when you wake. The road, the fire, the night sky, the old patient song of wandering. You are home for now, wrapped in the quiet embrace of sleep, carried by the gentle current of history itself. Sweet dreams.